Chapter 521 Thunder cracks the sky. Without the control of the beast of good and evil, the seals formed from faith had become very weak. Now, with Yi Fei-yong struggling against them, he grabbed hard with both hands and shattered the purple cage into pieces. Seeing Yi Fei-yong's show of strength, the other creatures in their cages began to struggle too. Even those who had long lost all hope began trying to break free. The space became much noisier than before. Roars of fury echoed one after another. Some creatures had already broken out of their cages, howling toward the sky in a frenzy. But even then, they looked at Su Zimo with caution, not daring to act too boldly. After all, they had just witnessed his battle with the beast. Don't be afraid. Maybe none of us can defeat him one-on-one. But with so many of us, even sheer numbers can force him to run. Someone shouted, trying to stir the crowd. Su Zimo looked at the restless creatures and smiled. No rush. Once you're all out, I'll deal with you together. Hearing this, some creatures became enraged and tried to attack him. As more and more creatures escaped their cages, the entire space was filled with murderous intent. With several of them taking the lead, the ones who had been suppressed for so long all surged toward Su Zimo in a frenzy. The roar of the crowd shook the entire space. Su Zimo shook his head slightly as powerful energy gathered behind him. A deep blue planet slowly rose behind him. This planet carried the weight of an actual world. As it descended, all the howling creatures were swept into the god world. Su Zimo showed no mercy. These beings were extremely vicious. Once inside the god world, and to avoid panic among its native residents, he slaughtered them all within that world. These beings had committed countless crimes in life. After death, their souls were thick with killing aura, turning the sky itself pitch black. When their spirits entered the underworld, Su Zimo first had Mengpa serve them forgetfulness water, erasing all their past life memories and karma. Looking at the confused but fiercely grim spirits, Su Zimo stood above the underworld with powerful presence and declared, "You were all evil in your past lives and are not from this world, so you cannot enter the 6 paths of reincarnation here. Today I establish the Yin Legion. You shall become Yin soldiers under Mengpo's command and govern this underworld. If you perform well, I will help you enter the God world and be reborn through the cycle of reincarnation." "Yes, sir," the Yin soldiers replied in unison, as if finding purpose. They all knelt on the bridge over the river of forgetfulness. Their voices echoed like thunder. Su Zimo nodded in satisfaction. Being a Yin soldier was painful. They couldn't become true living beings, couldn't feel normal emotions like joy, anger, sorrow, or happiness. They were like machines, repeating the same tasks along the river of forgetfulness for eternity. Still, Su Zimo hadn't lied. Since these souls were from the primordial heartlands, they truly couldn't enter the God world cycle of reincarnation. The underworld still needed improvement, but Su Zimo would build it step by step. No one builds greatness overnight. Once everything was in place, Su Zimo exited his true life world. Outside, the void space that had endured so many battles finally couldn't hold and shattered. When Su Zimo stepped out, he found himself back on the road he had been on earlier. The inn of good and evil had completely disappeared. He knew that the beast had suffered a huge loss. The creature had even separated the inn from the void space, its lair. There must be countless backup plans in place. As for the old man, who didn't have time to escape, Su Zimo had Chaos drag him to the myriad beast race to be trained with the others. Su Zimo turned his gaze toward Yi Fei-yong, now newly freed. "Don't worry, I'll keep my promise," Yi Fei-yong said with a smile. "I was planning to return to my race anyway." "I trust you," Su Zimo replied with a smile. "But before that, come with me to the Elden Lands." "One of the 10 forbidden grounds?" Yi Fei-yong asked curiously. "Just follow me. You only need to lead the way to the blood race." "No need to ask so much," Su Zimo said. "Once we reach the blood race, you'll be free." Yi Fei-yong nodded in agreement. It was early afternoon, and the snow had only just stopped falling. The world remained a vast white land of drifting snow. The two of them slowly headed toward the heart of the eastern continent. Half a month passed peacefully, without incident. Finally, they reached the location known as the Elden Lands. Withered and dark, that was the only way to describe it. Looking at it from afar, the mountains were shrouded in shadow. The Elden Lands were a place eternally engulfed in darkness. Aside from the faint light at the outer edges, there was no day or night distinction within. "How do we get in?" Yifeyang asked, glancing around. Everyone knew that aside from the Divine Gate, no one in this era could safely enter or leave the Elden Lands. Su Zimo took out a token the God Emperor had given him. It was the key to entering. More accurately, it was a way to contact the Divine Gate's leader. He activated the token with spiritual energy and sat cross-legged on the ground, waiting. Yifeyang was confused but didn't ask more. In his mind, Su Zimo was already a member of the Divine Gate. Middle Continent, Skilyuan region. This was one of the 5 major domains of the Central Continent, bordered by the Holy Flower region to the north and the Sealed Lands to the south. After the Middle Continent was split into 5, the Skilyuan region had always ranked among the top 3 in power. Whether it was the famous sword god Sacred Ground or the mysterious Lan clan, both resided here. Though winter had come, the Lan clan's territory remained spring-like all year thanks to powerful formations. The Lan clan's descendants lived their peaceful lives as usual. At the center of the southern city gate, a lifelike statue of the Lan clan's founder stood atop a tall platform. On that day, a sudden thunderclap rang out from the sky. Chapter 522, Arrival of the Demon. As the thunder exploded, the entire sky began to change color. A vast demonic aura surged upward, dyeing the entire sky overhead. The city beneath the sky was completely shrouded in this demonic energy. The sun was now blocked. The sky turned dark and cloudless, with thunder and lightning rolling through the clouds. In Blue Sky City, the people looked up in terror at the sky. "What is that?" some murmured, others whispering among themselves as they stared at the surging demonic energy. In the center of the city, within the Lan residence, a humble and low-profile manor surrounded by lush green plants. Those very plants began turning pitch black. At the heart of the residence, a hanging pendulum suddenly began to move. The pointer trembled non-stop at a certain position, ringing with metallic zhang-zhang sounds. Most of the Lan clan didn't know they were part of a demon-slaying clan. As the city's #1 force, many clan members now felt panic. High above, within the rolling demonic clouds, a pair of crimson eyes stared silently down over the city. "What is that thing?" someone asked in horror. Lan Juntian, the patriarch of the Lan clan, rushed to a secret space within the clan that no one else knew about. This space wasn't large. Contained 7 simple thatched cottages. In front of the cottages was a vast vegetable garden, filled with every type of plant. Behind the cottages was an expansive orchard filled with ancient spirit trees, many so old their origins couldn't be traced. Pluck chrysanthemums under the eastern fence and quietly see the southern mountains. The place was peaceful, perfect for retirement. At the front gate ran a river stretching into the horizon, disappearing far into the sky. No one knew how long it truly was. When Lan Juntian entered this space, he saw 7 elderly men sitting by the river, fishing calmly. These elders looked ordinary, without any overwhelming aura, just like 7 aging men enjoying their twilight years. "Juntian, you're here." One of them greeted with a warm smile. "Ancestor." Lan Juntian quickly bowed in respect. "You should know, unless it's a matter of clan destruction, you should never disturb us," another elder said with slight displeasure. "I know." Lan Juntian nodded quickly. Then, hesitantly, he said, "But the sign that was left long ago, it's come." "What sign?" One of the 7 hadn't caught on yet, but the elder sitting at the front looked to the sky. His cloudy eyes lit up with a sharp gleam. He muttered seriously, "The sky is changing. Jeline, what exactly is coming?" Another elder asked, confused. "The day of the demon's arrival has come," Lan Jeline said slowly, one word at a time. As soon as he finished, the expressions of the other 6 elders changed drastically. "The demon arrives," one muttered again. They all knew what those words meant. Just like their very existence as a demon-slaying clan, it was their mission and purpose. It's been so many years. Looks like the primordial demon cave seal is starting to stir again. Another 3,000-year cycle has passed. One elder sighed. They've come to seize the Chaos Stone. If the Chaos Stone is taken, the demon sealing lock undone, and the demon cave descends upon the primordial heartlands. Lan Gilin shook his head with a heavy expression. The consequences would be unimaginable. So today, even if we have to give our lives, we must kill the demon here. The others all nodded with determination. These men were the ancestors of the Lan clan from a bygone era. It was no exaggeration to say each of them had slain demons before. This was the mission of the Lan clan. Juntian, evacuate the entire clan and all the city residents, Lan Gilin ordered. The 7 of us will face the demon. Ancestor, let us stay and help, Lan Juntian said anxiously. It's useless. You're too weak. Even numbers will only add to the casualties. Lan Gilin shook his head. Don't worry. We've prepared for this. Demons have come in other eras too, and all ended up dead by our hands. Lan Juntian nodded firmly. Then I await your victorious return. Juntian, one day you'll stand where we are and face a new wave of demons, Lan Gilin said with a smile. Don't worry. Demons aren't as terrifying as you think. The 7 elders stood and stepped into the sky, leaving the hidden space behind. Outside, the demonic energy had already spread, covering 100 miles around Blue Sky City. It formed a barrier, no one could enter, and no one inside could leave. People hid in terror, watching what looked like the end of the world. Within the Lan residence, Lan Kuer stood in her courtyard, staring at the sky. Most of the clan didn't know the truth about their demon-slaying lineage, but she was this generation's chosen warrior, so she knew much more than the others. Just then, Lan Juntian walked into the courtyard. Father, Lan Kuer greeted. Kuer, how's your training with the demon-slaying technique going? Lan Juntian asked. I've already started, Lan Kuer nodded. I've begun to form the demon-suppressing energy. Good. In times like these, our Lan clan is like a floating weed. In the future, we'll need you to lead the clan to glory. Lan Juntian looked at the raging magic in the sky and sighed. If I had a choice, I wouldn't want you, my daughter, to face all this. But we can't change the selection process for demon slayers. I understand, Father. No need to explain, Lan Kuer said with a smile. So, a new demon is coming? Yes, but the ancestors will handle it. We don't need to worry. Hurry and pack. Go hide with the other clansmen. I need to help evacuate the city. As Lan Juntian left, Lan Kuer stood silently for a long time, her eyes looking off into the far east. She murmured softly, What are you doing right now? Meanwhile, the 7 Lan clan ancestors stepped out from the void with overwhelming presence. Chapter 523 Chaos Stone. They looked at the vast demonic aura in the sky, their gazes fixed for a long time. Lan Gilin spoke solemnly. The great demon that came this time is no ordinary one. Our Lan clan has lived through the Desolate Era and the Imperial Era, but we've never seen demonic energy so overwhelming, said another ancestor of the Lan clan, Lan Jingxiong. They had all been demon slayers in the past, having killed more than a few heaven demons, but none of those demons had such a terrifying presence as this one. The 3 of them were deeply worried, knowing this wouldn't be an ordinary battle. Judging from the level of demonic energy, this should already be at the level of an infernal archon, Lan Jingxiong said, his eyes focused on the sky. After killing so many demon scum, it's about time we took down an infernal archon as tribute. An old man beside him said coldly. Zhe Jing, don't be careless, Lan Gilin reminded. Don't worry, Lan Zejing nodded slightly and said. At this level, even in the primordial demon cave, he'd be considered a major figure. Everyone was discussing, and when everything reached a critical point, the figure of Paimon slowly appeared in the sky. Paimon looked at the 7 elders of the Lan clan, and the 7 of them studied him in return. "You are this generation's heaven demon?" Lan Zhilin asked first, his tone serious. "Hand over the Chaos Stone, and I will spare the Lan clan from today's bloodbath," Paimon said indifferently. "Heaven demons are inherently evil, while our Lan clan follows the heavenly Tao and stands for justice. You should retreat and avoid the fate of being killed." Lan Jingxiong responded with a cold snort. "Then there's nothing more to say." Paimon's aura surged. His right hand, filled with overwhelming demonic energy, fell toward Blue Sky City. A thunderous explosion followed. The entire space above collapsed completely, and the unyielding demonic energy poured down like a tide. Seeing this power, Lan Zhilin was the first to step up. Spirit force roared around him, forming a giant palm that crashed upward. Boom! A mushroom cloud exploded in the sky, with shockwaves spreading in all directions. At the city wall of Blue Sky City, half the wall was directly destroyed, and countless buildings collapsed. Screams and cries of pain rang out throughout the city. Both Lan Zhilin and Paimon remained motionless, but at that moment, the void beneath Lan Zhilin's feet began to shatter. Blood stained his blue robe, a jarring sight. Although for a cultivator of his level, such injuries were not serious. The fact that he was hurt from just a probing attack showed how formidable the enemy was. So strong. Lan Zijing frowned slightly. Compared to the others, Lan Zhilin could feel the power more clearly and directly. "You're not on the path of immortality. You've entered the path of Tao?" Lan Zhilin asked cautiously. "Only you ants distinguish between the immortal and the Tao. In our epoch, there was no such division," Paimon replied calmly. He took a step forward, his massive figure walking toward the Lan estate. "Stop him!" Lan Zhilin shouted, rushing forward. At that moment, Paimon truly looked like a descending demon king. Surrounded by endless demonic energy, his gaze was deep and blood-red. Behind him, the demonic energy transformed into countless terrifying and hideous faces. With each step he took, those faces roared as if calling out to their king. The pressure was immense. As the 7 ancestors of the Lan clan charged toward him, Paimon struck with his palm, sending one of them flying each time. Even though the 7 of them tried their best to stop him, they still couldn't hold back Paimon's advance. After all, Paimon's target was the Chaos Stone, not the people of the Lan clan. "What do? We can't stop him," Lan Zijing said anxiously. In truth, the strength of these 7 was far from weak. Lan Zhilin and Lan Jingxiong were both at the zenith immortal realm. The other 5 were all immortal sovereigns. No one would have expected that the usually low-key and reclusive Lan clan possessed such powerful forces. To put it bluntly, this force could easily wipe out an imperial sect. But in the Skiluan region, the Lan clan was mostly seen as mysterious. Other imperial lineages had also warned their disciples not to provoke the Lan clan. This had led to the Lan clan rarely showing their strength to outsiders. When Paimon stood at the gates of the Lan estate, he closed his eyes slightly. Strands of demonic energy drifted out from within the estate, as if searching for something. The demonic energy spread through the entire estate. Lan Zhilin shouted anxiously, "He's searching for the Chaos Stone. Stop him!" Shouts rang out around him, and as the 7 again rushed toward Paimon with devastating attacks, Paimon's eyes narrowed. His long hair rose, and the boundless demonic energy around him soared into the sky. The demonic clouds above merged with his aura, and thunder rumbled down. True darkness had descended. "Domain of despair," Paimon muttered. Once the entire city fell into the domain of despair, all kinds of negative emotions began to run wild. Any citizen hiding who came into contact with the despair energy became violent and uncontrollable. They started killing each other. What had once been a collapsed city now became even more chaotic due to the bloodshed. Meanwhile, Paimon's countless strands of demonic energy surged through the Lan estate for a long time, before finally stopping in front of a certain room. The demonic energy surrounded the room, letting out howls. "Found it!" Paimon chuckled softly and stepped into the lawn estate. As the demonic energy surged inward, the sealed room was destroyed. As the room collapsed, its contents were revealed. At the center of the room stood a high platform, surrounded by 18 columns. Each column was inscribed with runes, currently dim in color. Chains stretched from the columns. At the other end of the chains was an object on the platform. On top of the platform floated a gray mist. The chains passed through it, but it was unclear what was inside. This gray mist was strange, no method could see through its structure. Chaos energy, no mistake. The Chaos Stone must be inside, Paimon murmured, then walked step by step toward the platform. The Chaos Stone, the key to our ancient demon race's revival, Paimon said with rising emotion. Meanwhile, in the Elden Lands, Su Zimo didn't wait long before seeing a palanquin rushing over from the distance. Leading the way was the current godlord of the Divine Gate, Yin Wuhan. Chapter 524, Chaotic Elden Lands. Master Yin, long time no see, Su Zimo said with a light smile. Not at all, not at all. Young Master Su, please board the palanquin. Yin Wuhan quickly replied with a nod. Although he didn't know Su Zimo's exact relationship with the ancestor, since the ancestor had specifically asked them to look after him, he wouldn't dare show any disrespect. Su Zimo then got into the palanquin, which was swiftly carried by 4 yakshas. The rest of the group followed around the palanquin as they headed toward the Elden Lands. The area surrounding the Elden Lands hadn't changed much. Darkness and dark-aligned plants still covered the land, and the entire world here was shrouded in silence. Halfway along their route, the sounds of fighting suddenly rang out from outside. Su Zimo lifted the curtain and looked out, seeing a group of dark creatures suddenly rushing out from the slopes on both sides. These dark creatures weren't very tall and looked somewhat like skeletons. They crawled on all fours, moved fast, and were very agile. Their entire bodies were pitch black. A thick dark aura radiated from them. As the skeletons arrived, Yin Wuhan frowned slightly. After all, he had just broken through to the God Meridian realm. With a casual wave, he summoned a massive palm that slammed down, destroying all the skeletons. Although there were many of them coming one after another, their cultivation was simply too weak. They couldn't even withstand a single attack from Yin Wuhan. Once the palanquin passed by, a trail of corpses was left behind. What's going on? Su Zimo asked, looking at Yin Wuhan. Please don't mind it, young Master Su, Yin Wuhan replied with a smile. These Elden Lands erupt a few times each year, and the undead inside become very aggressive. It'll pass soon. An outbreak in the Elden Lands? Seems like even your Divine Gate can't find peace. Su Zimo laughed. You get used to it. Worst case, we go into seclusion again, Yin Wuhan said. None of the 10 forbidden grounds are simple. As they spoke, the palanquin entered the Divine Gate. Yin Wuhan arranged for someone to look after Yi Feiyong. Su Zimo went alone to meet the God Emperor. Passing through layers of concealed formations, Su Zimo finally arrived at the palace where the God Emperor resided. At this moment, the God Emperor seemed to have fully embraced a reclusive lifestyle. Without the heaven's will, he couldn't continue advancing his cultivation. Now he spent his time fishing and gardening, living a leisurely life. You look pretty relaxed, Su Zimo said. I've realized something. The God Emperor smiled and replied, without the heaven's will, I found peace here, and my state of mind has improved quite a bit. Then I'm disturbing your peace, Su Zimo said. No, not at all. Have you found a clue? The God Emperor asked eagerly. According to the records in our clan, the blood race should be in the Nether Blood Sea, Su Zimo said. The Nether Blood Sea? One of the 10 forbidden grounds? The God Emperor frowned and thought for a moment. That makes things troublesome. These forbidden places were all extremely dangerous. When he was still at his peak, he didn't fear them. But now, with his current strength, entering any of the 10 forbidden grounds would almost certainly mean death, which is why he was so troubled. If the blood race can survive there, then there must be a way in. We'll take it one step at a time, Su Zimo said. But the Nether Blood Sea is so vast. How do we even find the Blood Race? The God Emperor added. Not to mention how dangerous it is in there. Even I wouldn't be confident. You're lucky. I recently captured a member of the Blood Race. Maybe he can help, Su Zimo said. Really? The God Emperor's eyes lit up. He laughed. Why didn't you say so earlier? I was already prepared to never come back from the Nether Blood Sea. Is being a Grand Emperor really that important to you? Su Zimo asked. Even without the heaven's will, you could still reach immortality. It's different. With the heaven's will, I could journey to the outer heavens once more. The God Emperor said seriously. I've never forgotten the hatred of losing the heavens all those years ago. You were just too reckless back then, Su Zimo said with a smile and a shake of his head. After chatting for a while, Su Zimo decided to rest for the night and head to the Nether Blood Sea the next day. Strictly speaking, the Nether Blood Sea wasn't located on the eastern continent. Between the eastern and southern continents lies the Endless Sky Sea, which actually surrounds the middle continent. The eastern, western, southern, and northern continents are positioned around the middle continent. The Nether Blood Sea lies within this Endless Sky Sea. There are many legends about the Nether Blood Sea, but no one really knows its origin. It's said that back in the legendary era, people feared the ocean, especially the Endless Sky Sea, which stretched endlessly to the horizon. Few dared approach it. Later, as people began exploring the ocean, they discovered the Nether Blood Sea in a certain part of the Endless Sky Sea. It's said that no one who entered the Nether Blood Sea ever returned alive. At that time, it was listed as one of the 10 forbidden grounds, 10 of the most terrifying places on the continent. Of course, as people's cultivation levels rose, these forbidden places became less dangerous to the Grand Emperors and those at the peak of martial power. Although the Divine Gate rarely saw sunlight and had no concept of day and night, the people here still had a strong sense of time. Around evening, Su Zimo didn't go to rest but continued studying Demon. Just then, he suddenly heard explosions outside. Walking out of his room, Su Zimo saw various spiritual energies clashing in the distant sky, turning the black heavens into a swirl of colors. Among the battle sounds, strange roars could faintly be heard. Su Zimo casually stopped a disciple of the Divine Gate and asked, "What's going on?" "Monsters from the Elden Lands are attacking our Guardian formation," the disciple quickly explained. "They've been acting crazy lately, attacking almost every day. Previous outbreaks were never this serious." Watching the disciple rush off to help, Su Zimo shook his head slightly. It seemed the Divine Gate could handle it. He returned to his room and slept peacefully through the night. The next morning, when Su Zimo woke up, the fighting had stopped. But the atmosphere within the Divine Gate was very tense. The God Emperor had disguised himself, looking like a completely different person, and came early to find Su Zimo so they could head to the Nether Blood Sea. Before they left, Yin Wuhan gave them a reminder. "Ancestor, the situation outside the Elden Lands is currently unstable. The route we previously cleared is no longer safe. Why don't you wait until the chaos dies down before leaving?" "No need. I want to see what kind of monsters are causing trouble out there," the God Emperor replied with a cold snort. Chapter 525, Otherworldly Zenith Palace. The Elden Lands had experienced chaos before. This wasn't the first time for the Divine Gate. But in the past, the monsters of the Elden Lands attacked aimlessly, which made them easy to deal with. This time, however, it was obvious the chaos was organized and premeditated. The Divine Gate still didn't know who was behind it, and because the Elden Lands were so dangerous, they didn't dare investigate deeply. Failing to persuade them otherwise, Yin Wuhan finally handed a signal flare to the God Emperor. He said, "Ancestor, if you run into danger outside, just activate this signal. We'll come immediately." Yin Wuhan also understood that without the heaven's will, the God Emperor's power, even after thousands of years of cultivation, was only at the God Meridian realm. He might not even be able to defeat an ordinary immortal path cultivator. The God Emperor's resurrection was a well-kept secret in the Divine Gate. Besides Yin Wuhan, only a few elders knew about it. The God Emperor paused for a moment, then finally accepted the flare. He said solemnly, "If everything goes well on this trip, it will be the beginning of our divine gate's rise again. Farewell, ancestor," Een Woohin said, kneeling on the ground. The three of them left the divine gate together, heading toward the outskirts of the Elden Lands. Because of last night's battle, the outside was piled high with monster corpses. The hills were covered with them. Su Zimo took a glance. There were at least 10,000 bodies, and the air was thick with a strong, pungent smell of blood. "These monsters are all from the Elden Lands?" Su Zimo asked. "Yes, probably remnants from the Desolate Era," the God Emperor explained. After all, he had personally founded the Divine Gate and knew this place better than anyone. Most of the time, as long as you don't trespass on their territory and wake them, they remain dormant. I don't know why they're so aggressive now. When you become a Grand Emperor and are invincible in this world, what's there to fear? Su Zimo said with a smile. That's not certain. The Nether Blood Sea is no joke. The God Emperor shook his head slightly. Just as the three were about to continue talking, they suddenly heard faint hissing growls around them. "Looks like we've got trouble," Su Zimo said with a light laugh. Looking ahead and behind, he saw a massive group of monsters crawling toward them. Monsters also hid along the high slopes on both sides. They were completely surrounded. There was no way out. "Looks like we're in for a tough fight," Yi Fei-yong said, eyes narrowing. These monsters were much larger than before, and their auras were powerful, brimming with killing intent. "Each of us take a side. How about it?" Su Zimo said with a smile. "Let's finish this quickly. No need to waste time on them," the God Emperor agreed. Although there were many monsters, their strength was far too weak for Su Zimo. He drew his blade, Shadow Tyrant. It trembled slightly as a massive wave of ungodly blade energy formed. As Su Zimo raised Shadow Tyrant above his head, the blade energy surged higher, shooting into the sky. When he slashed down, there was a thunderous boom. The entire space in front of him was wiped out. On the God Emperor's side, he gathered vast spirit force in his hands, forming a giant phantom hand that reached toward the sky. It slammed down, crushing all the monsters beneath it. As for Yi Fei-yong's side, he was noticeably slower, mainly because he was absorbing the blood of the monsters. Each monster's death was brutal and miserable. Just as Su Zimo and the others were about to finish off the rest and escape, they suddenly heard clapping. They turned to see the void being torn apart, and three figures stepping out. "So there really is someone pulling the strings behind all this," the God Emperor said quietly. There were 2 men and 1 woman. One of the men wore a black vest and had a string of red prayer beads around his neck. He had a buzz cut and a scar on his face, looking fierce and brutal. The man in the middle wore a white robe, and even his long hair was gray-white. His aura was ethereal, like a handsome man stepping out of a painting. His robe was elegant, with silk ribbons, and a long pale white sword hung at his waist. His sharp features and gentle smile, along with his outfit, gave him the charm of a graceful youth that could enchant thousands. The woman on the right wore a long, clear green dress like the waters of a lake. She radiated one feeling: cold. Extremely cold, like ancient ice that could never melt. She had delicate features with light makeup. Her curved eyebrows and expressive eyes were beautiful, but filled with icy distance. She wore pure white earrings on both ears, which gently swayed in the breeze. "Who are you people?" Yi Fei-yong asked. "Looks like you're pretty high up in the Divine Gate," the buzzcut man said, eyes burning with fighting spirit. "So this chaos in the Elden Lands was caused by you?" the God Emperor asked with a frown. "When did our Divine Gate ever offend you? Why so many questions? You're all just corpses to be." The buzzcut man sneered, pulling out 2 short, blood-red blades from his sleeve. The blades gleamed with deadly light and radiated a faint glow. "Why don't you all fight, and I'll just stand by and watch?" Su Zimo said with a smile. "Make it quick," the white-haired man in the middle said softly. The God Emperor clashed with the buzzcut man, and Su Zimo turned to Yi Fei-yong. "You handle him. I'll take the woman." Yi Feiyong didn't object and charged toward the white-haired man. Su Zimo looked toward the woman. He could sense the God Meridian realm energy surging around her. It was as if snowflakes were falling, and the temperature around them dropped sharply. Her eyes were full of frost. Just one glance felt like it could freeze someone solid. "Miss, may I have your name?" Su Zimo asked with a smile. "Mo Xiaolu, from the otherworldly Zenith Palace." With a shout, freezing energy swept forth, and the woman in green charged at Su Zimo. "Otherworldly Zenith Palace." Su Zimo muttered softly. "So this faction has finally shown itself." Seeing her coming, Su Zimo shook his head. Such a young age, yet such a temper. Then he struck with his palm. Chapter 526, A Transcendent Force. That palm strike carried immense power. Su Zimo could tell that this woman, though at the God Meridian realm, was no match for him. Still, he remained cautious about this force called the Otherworldly Zenith Palace. In his previous life, this faction had once appeared, making a huge name for itself. Many imperial lineages even submitted under them. Of course, Su Zimo hadn't interacted much with them in his past life. He wasn't at a high enough level back then, so he knew little about them. As their palms collided, Su Zimo suddenly twisted his arm and grabbed the woman's wrist. He pulled the woman in the green dress directly in front of him. "Young lady, how about we both stop and just watch the fun?" Su Zimo said with a smile. Mo Xiaolu's eyes narrowed as she tried to break free from his grip, but his hand was like an iron clamp. She couldn't move at all. At that moment, her aura changed again. A light blue spirit force began flowing around her. With her at the center, snow started falling from the sky. A thick layer of ice formed on her skin, and Su Zimo felt a biting cold, a chill that pierced deep into his bones. Inside his mind, a sharp wave of icy energy surged toward his soul, trying to freeze and destroy it entirely. "Soul attack," Su Zimo chuckled. He activated the 9 Revolutions God Tower physique within him. In the first of the 9 defensive layers, the howling sunwolf raised its head and roared. It spat out a stream of fire, instantly burning away all the icy energy. The woman in green watched as Su Zimo stood unfazed, and her expression turned serious. She hadn't expected even her soul attack to be useless. "Who are you really?" Mo Xiaolu asked, her tone heavy. "Why don't you tell me about the otherworldly Zenith Palace?" Su Zimo said with a grin. Mo Xiaolu snorted coldly, and once again, her aura changed. The snowflakes falling around her grew more intense. A pure white spirit force began condensing around her. In that moment, her true fate appeared. Above her, the sky filled with swirling snowflakes that gathered around her. A powerful aura stirred the heavens. Cold, frost, and freezing energies spread throughout the area. Su Zimo watched with interest and said quietly, "Interesting. A snow and ice type true fate. People are naturally afraid of extreme natural disasters. It said nature is unstoppable, and bloodshed caused by heavy snowstorms can be devastating. And if one dares to make snow and ice their true fate, the price must have been huge." Su Zimo had struggled greatly when forming his own true fate world. As snow and frost gathered, the buzzcut man fighting the God Emperor laughed lightly. He said, "Looks like Junior Sister Xiaolu is really angry this time." As the blizzard swept in, Su Zimo took several steps back. Mo Xiaolu stood in the sky. With a casual point of her finger, the snowflakes around her began to condense. They formed into the shape of a massive snow dragon, which roared and charged at Su Zimo. He didn't dodge. With the tree of life's healing and his own defense, few in the same realm could hurt him. In the blink of an eye, the snow dragon struck with a deafening boom. The blast wave surged into the sky. Multiple deep craters formed around them from the explosion. Even nearby slopes looked like they might collapse. Everyone looked over. As the dust settled, Su Zimo slowly emerged from the center of the blast. He raised his head, grinned slightly, and said, "A kid's game. Isn't it time to stop?" The next moment, Su Zimo shot forward like a beam of light. "Junior sister," the buzzcut man shouted. "How?" Even Emo Xiaolu was stunned. He had taken her attack head-on. Su Zimo didn't give her time to think. He grabbed her by the throat and lifted her from midair. "Let go of my junior sister," the buzzcut man shouted. The gray-haired man's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, his aura surged. Countless sword shadows flashed around him as his figure moved at lightning speed. He pierced through layers of space and appeared behind Yi Feiyong. Grabbing Yi Feiyong's meridian points, he captured him in one swift move. After that, the gray-haired man looked a bit pale. Clearly, that move took a lot out of him, something he wouldn't use unless absolutely necessary. Seeing this, the buzzcut man became excited. He shouted at Su Zimo, "We both have hostages now. How about a trade? Your junior sister seems really important to you," Su Zimo said with a smile. "But Yi Feiyong doesn't mean much to me. The value isn't equal." "What do you want?" the gray-haired man asked calmly. "Answer a few questions and I'll let her go," Su Zimo said. "1. No more than that," the gray-haired man said firmly. "Why are you attacking the Elden Lands?" Su Zimo asked. "We want to take over the Divine Gate. The Elden Lands are one of the most hidden places," the gray-haired man replied without hesitation. Su Zimo thought for a moment. Just like in his previous life, this faction had started with a small spark, then rapidly expanded. Within a few years, it spread across the entire primordial heartlands. "Can I let her go now?" the gray-haired man asked. Su Zimo smiled and kicked Emo Xiaolu downward. His foot landed right on her backside. As she hit the ground, her usually icy expression turned slightly red. She clenched her teeth and glared at Su Zimo. "One day, I'll kill you." The gray-haired man didn't say anything. He just tossed Yi Feiyong over. "Still want to fight?" Su Zimo asked. "May I ask your name?" the gray-haired man asked. "Su Zimo of the true martial sacred ground," he replied. "I'll remember it," Emo Xiaolu said coldly, her expression back to icy calm as she gave Su Zimo one last look. She turned to the other two and said, "Let's go." As the three walked away, the space in front of them was torn open. The God Emperor looked at Yi Feiyong and said, "You're really weak, taken down so easily." "His true fate is time," Yi Feiyong said, shaking his head. Chapter 527 Sea Dwellers. "It was just for a brief moment, but my time was slowed. I got caught off guard. That's why he was able to capture me," Yi Feiyong explained. Hearing this, the God Emperor pondered and said, "A time path true fate, like the old Time Emperor? Not that strong." After all, the Time Emperor had already surpassed the laws of time and reached the far shore of time itself. Yi Feiyong shook his head. The Time Emperor could even travel through the past and reverse reincarnation. Clearly, that was not something the opponent was capable of. Still, it's impressive. Time is one of the hardest true fates to comprehend, the God Emperor said with a shake of his head. He's still young. But what exactly is this otherworldly Zenith Palace? I've never heard of it before. Looking at the two of them, Su Zimo shook his head slightly and said, "I don't know either. Why overthink it? Once you've condensed your heaven's will, who in this world can oppose you?" "You," the God Emperor said faintly as he looked at Su Zimo. He recalled the demon seal inside him. His life and death rested in Su Zimo's hands. "Let's get to the Nether Blood Sea quickly," Su Zimo said with a smile. The three nodded. After leaving the Elden Lands, they were no longer attacked. Eventually, they exited the Elden Lands and, orienting themselves, began heading toward the Nether Blood Sea. "Tell us more about the Blood Race," Su Zimo asked Yi Feiyong. As they traveled, Yi Feiyong thought for a moment. Then he said, "Actually, the Blood Race isn't completely united. It's divided into three main branches: the Divine Blood Lineage, the Demonic Blood Lineage, and the Beast Blood Lineage. Those are some flashy names," the God Emperor said with a slight shake of his head. "In general, the Divine Blood Lineage stays out of worldly matters. They don't get involved in conflict and are very low-key," Yi Feiyong explained. "But the Demonic and Beast Blood lineages are always fighting to prove their status within the race." "That complicated?" Su Zimo frowned. The elders usually stay neutral, so while there's constant friction, full-scale battles rarely happen. I was born into the divine blood lineage. Fortunately, they're more accepting, otherwise, with my mixed blood, I'd probably have been executed already. Su Zimo fell silent for a moment. The blood race's inner structure was complex, but helping the God Emperor recover and condense his heavens couldn't wait. His recovery was crucial for many of Su Zimo's future plans. He needed that power. After that, the group didn't talk much. They barely rested along the way. Although the eastern continent was vast, with their cultivation levels, they traveled non-stop and finally, on the 18th day, reached the endless sky sea that lay between the eastern and southern continents. It was afternoon. At the dock, they hired a medium-sized ship to head into the endless sky sea. Because of the climate, a thin layer of frost had formed on the ocean's surface. Fortunately, it wasn't thick, and the ship sliced through it easily. The three of them rested in the cabin while the ship stirred up waves and sped across the sea. The afternoon sea was beautiful. The sun no longer had a clear shape. The setting sun turned the sky golden, with no evening clouds. The sea and the sky blended together at the horizon. The dazzling sunset and the vast ocean reflected one another, a breathtaking view. The Nether Blood Sea was extremely hard to locate. Even Yi Feiyong, who had come from there, couldn't find the direction right away. The group drifted on the sea the entire afternoon. As the sky darkened, they decided to meditate in the cabin for the night and search again the next day. Nighttime on the endless sky sea was eerie. The darkness was like a massive beast swallowing everything. A silent roar spread all around. As the ship sailed, distant lights suddenly appeared. "What's that?" the God Emperor asked curiously. "Sea dwellers," Yi Feiyong replied uncertainly. Su Zimo had heard of sea dwellers before. Some people preferred to live on the ocean. They built floating homes, protected by defensive formations. Many houses were connected together, drifting with the waves across the endless sky sea, enjoying the scenery along the way. In recent years, this sea dweller lifestyle had become very popular and well-loved. "Let's go take a look," Su Zimo said. The God Emperor and Yi Feiyong nodded. As they got closer, Su Zimo could see the sea houses clearly. There weren't many, maybe 20 or so. They were built from a type of wood called Northern Ocean timber, a tree that naturally grows in the vast oceans. Said to be incredibly sturdy, able to withstand even ocean waves. It also holds up well in water, making it one of the best materials for floating homes. As Su Zimo's ship approached, the formations around the sea houses suddenly activated. Ripples spread from beneath the water, and the entire sea area began to stir. In an instant, more than 10 figures flew out from the houses, stepping into the air to look down at Su Zimo's ship. "Who dares trespass on Blue Water Fort?" a deep voice called out from the group. "Please don't misunderstand. We're just travelers on the endless sky sea. We saw your sea settlement and came to take a look," Yi Feiyong quickly explained. The group fell silent for a while. Then, an old man appeared, accompanied by 2 others, and slowly descended. The old man looked quite aged. His face was dry and deeply wrinkled, clearly someone who had spent years exposed to wind and rain, battered by ocean gales. "I am Taoist Blue Smoke. Please don't take offense," the old man said. "The sea is dangerous, especially in this region. One must be extra cautious." "Thank you for the warning, Elder. We'll be on our way," Yi Feiyong replied. "If you don't mind, you're welcome to spend the night here at Blue Water Fort," Taoist Blue Smoke said with a smile. "I welcome friends from all across the world. You must be from the eastern continent." "Then we'll trouble you," Su Zimo said with a nod. They docked the ship as the protective formation around the houses opened. Accompanied by Taoist Blue Smoke, the 3 of them stepped into Blue Water Fort. Though it was made of just a few dozen houses connected together, the layout inside was impressively intricate. Chapter 528 Blood Race appears. Inside this sea dwelling, aside from the residential houses, there were many decorative scenes. There was a waterfall shooting up into the sky, misting through the air like falling flower petals. There were also swords made of seawater spinning midair. Upon entering Blue Water Fort, the surroundings were filled with countless blooming flowers of various colors. These flowers bloomed in reverse, most of them water attributed. Among them were narcissus, green peonies, murong, and other flowers capable of growing in the deep sea. Especially in this cold season, their presence added a layer of quiet chill. Su Zimo stepped into Blue Water Fort. At night, the sea village floated peacefully on the ocean. Calm and elegant, gently swaying with the waves. If you haven't eaten yet, I'll have some food prepared. Let's drink and feast, Taoist Blue Smoke said with a smile. He brought them to a side hall, where long tables had already been arranged on both sides. The people of Blue Water Fort moved quickly and had already begun setting out wine, meat, and other dishes. Could you tell me about the Eastern continent? Taoist Blue Smoke sat at the head of the table, raising his cup and smiling at everyone. Where are you from, senior? Yi Feiyang asked with a smile. We started from the Western continent, passed through the Southern continent, and just arrived at this endless sky sea. We don't know much about the Eastern continent, Taoist Blue Smoke replied. Su Zimo was slightly surprised. If they came all this way without using any teleportation arrays, that meant they had sailed the full circle of the endless sky sea surrounding the Southern continent, an unimaginably long journey. Su Zimo sometimes admired those who had the spirit to explore and spend their entire lives in pursuit of something. While Yi Feiyang chatted with them, Su Zimo and the God Emperor spoke very little. Eventually, the meal ended. Everyone was satisfied and in good spirits. Taoist Blue Smoke arranged separate rooms for Su Zimo and the others. Su Zimo had originally planned to ask about the Nether Blood Sea, but after thinking it over, he decided to ask in the morning before they left. Night fell over the floating village, and around midnight, a sudden scream pierced the air. In the stillness of night, the scream sounded especially sharp and sudden. What happened? Everyone in Blue Water Fort was awakened. Su Zimo also came out of his room. The people of the fort responded quickly, surrounding the area where the scream came from. Su Zimo could only watch from a distance. Zhang Yang is dead. How did he just die like that? It looks like all his blood was drained. He died horribly. He hasn't been dead long. Could the killer still be on board? Hearing the crowd talk, Su Zimo, though he hadn't seen the body, already had a guess. Blood race, he said, glancing at Yi Feiyang. Yi Feiyang quickly shook his head and explained, It wasn't me. I'm different from the others. I can survive without feeding on blood. Su Zimo knew that ordinary blood race members had to drink blood regularly to stay alive. It wasn't just a matter of survival, it was also how they cultivated. The stronger the blood they drank, the faster they could cultivate. But someone like Yi Feiyang with impure blood was different from the others. So you think someone from the blood race is hiding in this sea fort? Su Zimo asked. This place is close to the Nether Blood Sea. I don't know the exact location, but I guess the blood race is active in this area, Yi Feiyang replied. Do you have a way to identify them? Su Zimo asked. Unless they show their true form, it's impossible to tell them apart from regular people. Yi Feiyang shook his head. That's a problem. Looks like tonight will be full of fear and chaos, Su Zimo said with a sigh. Just then, Taoist Blue Smoke approached with a group of people. Senior, Yi Feiyang greeted him. Taoist Blue Smoke stared at Su Zimo for a while before speaking solemnly. You'd best be careful. This part of the sea is dangerous. Do you know of the Nether Blood Sea? Su Zimo asked. Hearing that, Taoist Blue Smoke's expression changed immediately. Are you part of the blood race? Don't misunderstand, Senior. We're human. We're only looking for the Nether Blood Sea because of some matters. Yi Feiyang quickly explained. There's someone from the blood race on this ship. If you find him, you might get the location of the Nether Blood Sea, Taoist Blue Smoke said. As he walked away, Su Zimo fell into quiet thought. What now? Yi Feiyang asked. Sleep, Su Zimo replied. You're not going to investigate the blood race? Yi Feiyang blinked, confused. No one we know died. Others will be more desperate to find out, Su Zimo said, shaking his head. He was sure Taoist Blue Smoke knew something about the Nether Blood Sea. But the reason he hadn't told Su Zimo was likely because he wanted to use him to track down the blood race. You two rest. I'll go check things out, Yi Fei-yong said, worried. Su Zimo didn't stop him. After greeting the God Emperor, he went back to his room to sleep. Outside, things were chaotic. Because of the murder, no one in the fort could sleep. And since the fort wasn't very big, the whole place became active. People were checking everyone's identity whenever they saw an unfamiliar face. In the middle of the night, with lights blazing outside, the door to Su Zimo's room slowly opened. Lying in bed, Su Zimo turned over and looked toward the door. In the moonlight, he saw a figure standing there. Or rather, something resembling a person. Its face was covered in blood, its body dripping wet, as if it had just climbed out of the sea. The most terrifying part was its teeth. All of them were dozens of centimeters long. They stuck out of its mouth, tearing through both sides of its lips, dripping with blood. It looked terrifying. Is this what they mean by search high and low only to find it right here? Su Zimo murmured, a bit surprised. But then he thought it made sense. With the whole fort in chaos, his room was the only quiet place. Naturally, it was the best hiding spot. The Blood Race member stood at the door and slowly shut it. In the quiet, tense room, Su Zimo could feel the pressure coming off him. It was so heavy it could paralyze an ordinary person, making it hard to even speak. Can you take me to the Nether Blood Sea? Su Zimo asked with a smile. Chapter 529, Acquaintance. Hearing Su Zimo's words, the Blood Race member at the door seemed stunned. He stared at Su Zimo and let out a low, hoarse roar. Blood and saliva mixed around his fangs, looking incredibly grotesque. He swayed forward, rushing at Su Zimo with his mouth wide open, trying to swallow him whole. Su Zimo could tell the man's cultivation wasn't very high. To him, this kind of being was no more than an insect. He lightly flicked his right hand, and a burst of spirit force shot out. With a loud boom, the energy exploded with overwhelming force, piercing straight through the Blood Race member's heart. The figure stopped, half kneeling on the ground, clutching his chest. Blood gushed uncontrollably from the wound. For the Blood Race, the heart was their most fatal weakness. Since they had to process large amounts of blood, their hearts were stronger than most creatures. But that strength was also their vulnerability. Once the heart was damaged, they were basically finished. Su Zimo stepped down from the bed and slowly walked up to the man. Can we talk now? He asked calmly. Just then, the door swung open, and Yi Fei-yong arrived with several people from Blue Water Fort. You okay? Yi Fei-yong asked urgently. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and asked, Did you find any other Blood Race members? Not yet, but we can interrogate him first, Yi Fei-yong replied. The group dragged the Blood Race man out of the dark room into an open space outside. Though Blue Water Fort wasn't large, there was still some room. Under the moonlight, as clear as frost, Yi Fei-yong caught a clear look at the Blood Race member's face and froze. Shi Yan? It's you, Yi Fei-yong asked in disbelief. The Blood Race man studied Yi Fei-yong, furrowing his brow in thought. Finally, he looked up and asked hesitantly, You're Fei-yong? What are you doing here? Yi Fei-yong asked. Brother Fei-yong, where have you been all these years? The race has been searching for you for so long. You don't know what happened after you disappeared, Shi Yan said hurriedly. It's a long story, Yi Fei-yong replied. What happened to the race? And why are you out here hunting yourself? Yi Fei-yong was puzzled. Shi Yan held a decent position in the divine blood lineage. Usually, his meals would be provided by the race. He shouldn't have needed to take risks like this. Shi Yan looked around, hesitating. It's fine. They're all with us. Yi Fei-yong reassured him, waving at the others to step back. The people from Blue Water Fort exchanged glances and slowly backed off. Go ahead. What's going on? Yi Fei-yong asked. Our divine blood lineage was wiped out, Shi Yan said quietly after a long pause. his voice full of sorrow. What? Yi Feiyang's expression changed. Did you get involved in the conflict between the beast blood and demon blood lineages? No way. You know we've always been neutral. Shi Yan shook his head. But you also know those two lineages are always fighting. And we, the divine blood lineage, benefited the most from it. So while we didn't participate, we became the common enemy. They wiped out the entire lineage just for that? Yi Feiyang asked, shocked. Didn't the elders stop it? Shi Yan sighed and began explaining what happened. The Nether Blood Sea erupted. The elders went all in to suppress the chaos. Each lineage guarded their own territory. Everything seemed fine. But unexpectedly, the demon and beast blood lineages secretly opened a gap in the defense, allowing the chaotic force into the heart of the race. The divine blood lineage was caught from both sides. Though they managed to survive that battle, they were nearly annihilated. The divine blood lineage lost nearly all their power. When the elders found out, they only scolded the other two lineages. They weren't willing to ruin the race over a lineage that had already fallen. And so, the matter was buried. Yi Feiyang could already imagine the current state of the divine blood lineage. Stripped of resources, surviving members like Shi Yan forced to hunt for food themselves. Take me to the blood race, Yi Feiyang said coldly. Don't act rashly, brother Feiyang. You're not their match yet, Shi Yan quickly advised. Yi Feiyang shook his head and looked at Su Zimo. Now that the race's situation is clear, are you still going? Why wouldn't I? Su Zimo replied with a smile. But there's no need to be so direct now. If you help me get what I want, I can help you take revenge. You sound pretty confident, Shi Yan said, clearly unconvinced. Do you look down on the blood race? Do you really still feel loyal to a race like that? Su Zimo asked. Don't you hate those people inside? Shi Yan fell silent. That battle nearly wiped out the entire divine blood lineage. Many of the dead were his friends and family. Of course he hated them, but his strength was too weak to do anything about it. The best way to break chains is to destroy them. Only after destruction comes rebirth, Su Zimo said calmly. Think about it. Shi Yan looked at Yi Feiyang, then nodded and said to Su Zimo, All right, I'll help you. The three of them quickly discussed a simple plan. At that moment, Taoist Blue Smoke approached with a group of people. I heard the killer has been found? He asked, getting straight to the point. Senior, this is a misunderstanding. He's my friend, not the killer, Yi Feiyang explained quickly. He's a blood race member, Taoist Blue Smoke said plainly. I said, it's a misunderstanding. Su Zimo looked at him. A powerful God Meridian Realm aura surged from his body. The God Emperor also released his own force beside him, vast and unstoppable, staring directly at Taoist Blue Smoke. Yi Feiyang stood in front of Shi Yan, gathering his God Meridian power to protect him. The air grew heavy, their combined auras locking the space around them. Taoist Blue Smoke suddenly laughed, his expression relaxing slightly. If it's a misunderstanding and it's all cleared up, then it's fine, he said with a smile. Chapter 530 Entering the Blood Race. Watching Taoist Blue Smoke walk away, Yi Feiyang finally let out a breath. That man was strong, at least that was the impression he gave. Yi Feiyang couldn't sense his cultivation level at all. By now, dawn had started to break. A pale light spread across the eastern horizon, casting the first rays of sunlight onto the world. Blue Water Fort activated its formations, and the floating sea homes slowly began drifting again, starting a new journey back toward the eastern continent. It was time for Su Zimo and the others to leave. As he watched the silhouette of the sea dwellings gradually fade, Su Zimo knew these people would continue traveling the endless sky sea for the rest of their lives. Eventually, perhaps only 1 in 10 would survive, and only after completing the full circle around the primordial heartlands would their journey be done. Can you take us to the blood race now? Su Zimo asked Shi Yan. Stick close to me. Although the blood race resides within the Nether Blood Sea, even we don't dare go too deep, Shi Yan warned. The group boarded a ship and, under Shi Yan's guidance, sailed north. After about half an hour of travel, The ship stopped in a quiet section of the sea. Su Zimo looked around but didn't notice anything unusual. Then Shi Yan began forming hand seals, some ancient and complex gesture. As his hands moved, ripples spread across the surface of the sea. The ocean began to churn violently. Water drawing technique, Su Zimo muttered. The blood race really does know how to hide. As the churning intensified, the innermost layer of water revealed itself, blood red in color. It looked like actual blood, emitting a strong stench of rot. The blood felt sinister, evil, and violent, as if it carried all the world's filth within it. Thick and sticky, it flowed ominously. "This is the entrance to the Nether Blood Sea?" the Divine Emperor asked. "There are many entrances. This is just one of them," Shi Yan explained. As the Blood Sea was revealed, the surface roiled, and strange howling echoed from within. "The Blood Sea is corrosive. Stay close," Shi Yan reminded. He waved his hand again, and the seal he had just formed enlarged dozens of times in the air and extended into the Blood Sea. It turned into a stream of light that briefly parted the sea. The three followed Shi Yan and jumped into the sea. The glowing seal wrapped around them, shielding them from the blood. To Su Zimo's surprise, the thick blood surrounding them was completely blocked off. Clearly, the blood race had studied the sea for generations. Their vision was heavily impaired by the deep red waters. Still, Su Zimo could faintly make out the surroundings. There were many strange creatures living in this blood sea. Octosnakes, blood turtles, and swarms of killing fish. All filthy beasts that fed on corpses and rot. These creatures didn't attack them, likely used to their presence. They swam by without fear. Following Shi Yan's lead, they headed north, and soon buildings began to appear in the distance. Massive structures, sharp mountain peaks that pierced the deep sea like giant swords. There were giants chained to the seabed, pushing mountains as they trudged forward. There were fountains of blood erupting into the sea, where countless blood race members sat, meditating. The Nether Blood Sea stretched endlessly, and the blood race's territory was just as vast. "I'll take you to the divine blood lineage first, then we'll plan the rest," Shi Yan said. "Looks like your blood race has grown quite a bit," Su Zimo said with interest. "When we first arrived here, we clung to a small corner. But once we adapted to the environment, we kept expanding," Shi Yan explained. As they chatted, they followed Shi Yan to the base of a mountain. Thanks to Shi Yan, none of the blood race members along the way noticed anything unusual. Just as humans struggle to identify blood race in disguise, the blood race likewise can't easily recognize humans, unless someone enters battle mode, revealing their true form. The mountain they approached looked ancient. Its cliffs were steep, and the rocky slopes were jagged. Signs of a great battle scarred the area, and the mountain seemed ready to collapse at any moment. "Since the fall of our divine blood lineage, most of our territory was taken by the other two lineages," Shi Yan said quietly. "All that's left is this abandoned mountain, where the few of us remaining survive." The four climbed the mountain, and with their cultivation, it only took a few minutes to reach midslope. The area felt desolate, no one in sight. "Chun'er, where are you?" Shi Yan called out. Moments later, a group of children came running out from the rock walls on both sides. There were dozens of them. Their faces were pale and thin, clearly suffering from long-term malnutrition. They called out Brother Shi Yan with joy, but their eyes quickly turned wary as they spotted Su Zimo and the others. "And these are?" Yi Feiyang asked grimly. "They're the children who survived the battle. They didn't fight back then. They're the descendants left behind," Shi Yan explained. "The elders really disappointed me," Yi Feiyang said. "No matter what, they're still part of the same race. So what if they are? Humans fight among themselves far more cruelly than we do. These kids are lucky to be alive," Shi Yan replied with a sigh. He seemed to have come to terms with it. Complaining wouldn't help. After settling the children, the group gathered in a hidden cave along the mountainside. "What exactly are you here for?" Shi Yan asked. "The Myriad Tao Red Lotus," the Divine Emperor said directly. "You've got quite the appetite." That's our race's sacred treasure, Shi Yan said, surprised. It's just a fragment of the myriad Tao lotus. That counts as a sacred treasure. Su Zimo frowned. He remembered the azure lotus of the true martial sacred ground. It was placed in the sword-washing pool, nothing too important. Do you know where we are? Shi Yan smiled. The Nether Blood Sea, the God Emperor replied with a frown. Wait, the Nether Blood Sea. The myriad Tao red lotus. Seeing the look on the God Emperor's face, Shi Yan chuckled. You get it now, don't you? No wonder you all came to the Nether Blood Sea. Everyone thought you were afraid of Sword God's sacred ground. Su Zimo said with sudden realization. Turns out you had a bigger plan all along. Chapter 531 Planning. The myriad Tao red lotus helps your blood race people comprehend the Blood Sea and absorb the energy of the Nether Blood Sea. Right? The God Emperor said from the side. Yes, but only the elders have access to it. We have no way to get close, Shi Yan replied. Do you know where the myriad Tao red lotus is usually kept? Su Zimo asked. The forbidden land of the blood race, within the forbidden nether realm. Yi Feiyong answered from the side. I know a bit about this. The forbidden nether realm merges with the Blood Sea. It's not a pure space. It's said that only there can the power of the myriad Tao red lotus be amplified to the fullest. But it's also dangerous. Many elders have died in there. Hearing this, Shi Yan nodded and added, the only problem now is, how do we enter the forbidden nether realm? Only the elders know how to open it. If all else fails, we'll just force our way in. But I'm not sure how strong your blood race really is, Su Zimo said. I can tell you everything I know, but you have to agree to one condition, Shi Yan said. Let's hear it. Su Zimo raised his head and asked. After you obtain the myriad Tao red lotus, help me become the leader of the blood race. Shi Yan said clearly and firmly. Fine. We only want the red lotus. As for who becomes patriarch and the fate of your race after that, it has nothing to do with me. Su Zimo nodded. Good. Our fate is in our own hands. If the elders are cruel and unjust, then I'll fight for it myself, Shi Yan replied. Tell me about your blood race, Su Zimo asked. He really had no interest in internal family disputes. Our blood race has a long history, but very few true powerhouses have emerged. The so-called Divine Bloodlord is one, I guess. Shi Yan thought for a moment and said, as for whether our ancestors are still alive, I don't know either. Currently, there are 8 remaining elders. Have all your elders reached the path of immortality? Su Zimo asked. If that were the case, then the blood race's power would be considerable. 8 immortal beings could easily wipe out a typical imperial lineage. Reaching immortality isn't that easy. Most spend countless years stuck at the God Meridian realm and eventually die in solitude, Shi Yan said. From what I know, among the 8 elders, only 2 have truly become immortals. That's not bad for forcing our way through. The only real threat is your famed ancestor, Su Zimo said. Do you have a plan? Shi Yan asked. Take us near the forbidden land tonight. If needed, we'll force our way in, Su Zimo said. Shi Yan nodded. Then rest here for now. Try not to go out and be seen. We'll leave tonight. Su Zimo nodded, then turned to the God Emperor and asked, now that you've reclaimed your immortal realm alone, do you feel confident? Immortal realm? Back in the day, they were nothing but souls under my command. The God Emperor said calmly, eyes deep and cold. Even if my heaven's will is shattered now, I can still fight all 8 elders alone. I'll have chaos stall them. I'll go open the Forbidden Land's entrance. Su Zimo nodded. The group continued discussing and refining their plan. Once it was settled, they agreed to act that night. Shi Yan left the cave. As the current head of the Divine Blood lineage, many people were likely watching him. The Nether Blood Sea has no distinction between day and night. Although it refracts some sunlight, the Blood Sea blocks most of it. So even during the day, it remains dim, the sunlight tinged red. By afternoon, as things grew darker, a group of uninvited guests arrived at the ruined mountain peak. Shi Yan, aren't you coming out to greet this young lord? Is your divine blood lineage always this rude? A loud voice rang out. The shout echoed across the mountainside, full of authority. Shi Yan slowly stepped out from the left cliffside, his expression indifferent as he looked at the visitors. They wore dark red robes or long garments, with blue patterns embroidered on the sleeves. Their leader was a young man with short hair and a handsome face. Yao Yang, what are you doing here? Shi Yan asked flatly. The man was from the demon blood lineage, a leader among the younger generation and a rising star in the blood race. Shi Yan used to be on equal footing with him, but now, with the fall of the divine blood lineage, his attitude naturally changed. If the elders hadn't told me to come, I wouldn't waste time in a dump like this. Just a bunch of good-for-nothings waiting to die. Yao Yang said coldly. What do you want? Shi Yan asked. Tomorrow, the elders will enhance the foundations of the younger generation in the Forbidden Land. Your divine blood lineage gets 1 spot, Yao Yang said indifferently. Wasn't it 10 spots per lineage? What? Did you take the other 9 for yourselves? Shi Yan sneered. Shi Yan, don't be ungrateful. If not for the elders' sentimentality, your lineage wouldn't even get 1 spot, Yao Yang said flatly. Whether you come or not is your business. After saying that, Yao Yang turned to leave. To him, the divine blood lineage was beneath notice. Just as Yao Yang was about to go, a massive palm descended from above. It enveloped Yao Yang and his group. The palm was powerful but didn't slam down immediately. It restrained the group instead. Then, without warning, it stirred up swirling winds and silently crushed them all in its grasp. No! Shi Yan cried out in shock from the front. But it was too late. Blood splattered in midair, and they didn't even have time to scream. Shi Yan turned his head and saw Su Zimo's group emerge from the mountain wall nearby. The God Emperor clapped his hands, as if he had just swatted a few bugs, completely unfazed. You killed them? Shi Yan asked, his eyes narrowing. Don't you hate them, Shi Yan? Su Zimo asked with a smile. I do. But do you know who they were? Killing them now will bring major trouble, Shi Yan said urgently. They won't notice for a while. Besides, we've already prepared for all-out war. What are you afraid of? Su Zimo replied. Don't you trust me? Shi Yan asked with a frown. Su Zimo's action in killing Yao Yang's group was clearly meant to tie them all together on the same ship. At this point, even if Shi Yan wanted to defect, the demon blood lineage wouldn't spare him. Chapter 532, The Baptism Begins. Because Su Zimo and the others had been brought in by him, no matter what happened, he wouldn't be able to escape responsibility for Yao Yang's death. Brother Shi, don't mind it. Shouldn't we pay something to help you become the Lord of the Blood Race? Su Zimo said with a smile. All right, I'll remember that. Shi Yan nodded and replied calmly. Tomorrow there will be a baptism. That will be the closest moment to the Myriad Dao Red Lotus. You only get 1 chance. Then tonight, let's just take a look at the forbidden area. We won't go in, Su Zimo said. Earlier, the God Emperor had acted decisively. After killing Yao Yang, he had left no trace behind. After spending the entire afternoon on the mountain, Shi Yan found some robes of the divine blood lineage for Su Zimo and the other 2 to wear. They were still red robes, but the embroidery at the cuffs was purple. As night began to fall, the group left the mountain and headed toward the interior of the blood race. Ever since the divine blood lineage had fallen from power, those who once associated with them kept their distance, afraid of causing misunderstandings with the other 2 lineages. So when the 3 walked through the blood race's domain, no one came to greet them. Fortunately, no one came to mock them either. Su Zimo could clearly sense how far the divine blood lineage had declined. Passing through corridor after corridor, Su Zimo saw that the blood race's territory was vast and boundless. Along the way, he saw many different kinds of people. The cultivation methods of the blood race were very different from those of ordinary beings. They didn't absorb the energy of heaven and earth or the essence of the sun and moon. Instead, they absorbed blood. Thanks to their superior physiques, they could completely absorb the power within blood. Of course, when it came to enlightenment, all beings were the same. In the later stages, raw power alone was not enough to break through the pulse gates. After walking for nearly half an hour, the group finally arrived at the so-called forbidden area of the blood race. The forbidden area was surrounded by deep forests and tall grass, with clan members patrolling all around, making it impossible to approach. Looking up, they saw the walls of the forbidden area rising nearly 100 meters high, towering into the sky, making it impossible to see what was inside. No one knew what material the walls were made of. They were entirely a dark purple color. They emitted a faint purple glow, giving off a heavy and oppressive feeling. Su Zimo carefully examined the surroundings but found nothing of value. He could only decide to wait until tomorrow to explore the inside. Since the divine blood lineage had one slot available, Shi Yan decided to register Su Zimo under that name. The most important item for the baptism was the Myriad Dao Red Lotus. It was said that the blood race's baptism used the Myriad Dao Red Lotus to harness the power of the Nether Blood Sea, transforming the bodies of clan members. Although this process consumed a lot of energy, the results were significant. It was said that the blood race only held such a baptism once every 100 years. If Yao Yang hadn't reminded him yesterday, Shi Yan might have completely forgotten about it. The night passed without incident. Early the next morning, just as dawn broke, many members of the blood race had already risen and begun gathering. Today was the day of the baptism. According to the rules, this was the only time clan members could enter the forbidden area. Although the chosen participants benefited the most from the baptism, even those who merely entered the forbidden area would be bathed in its residual light. The blood race had a long history, but from a broader perspective, they weren't actually a large clan. Aside from a few members living outside, most of the young members of the two lineages were gathered here. Since the baptism primarily benefited the younger generation, only the 8 elders were allowed into the forbidden area. Other members did not need to enter. A vast procession marched toward the forbidden area, where the gates were now open. Atop the nameless peak, Shi Yan looked at a group of children behind him, the last remnants of the divine blood lineage. Solemnly, he said, "Wait for me. If your big brother comes back alive, he will become king of the blood race." The children saw them off from the peak. They didn't even qualify to enter the forbidden area. Shi Yan turned back, then walked toward the forbidden area with Su Zimo and the others. "Fei Yang, if you come back this time, don't leave again," Shi Yan said. "I won't. Besides, I've got nowhere else to go." Yi Feiyang laughed loudly beside him. The group chatted casually along the way, and finally arrived at the entrance to the forbidden area. A long line of people was waiting to enter. "Sure, family brat, has your divine blood lineage picked its baptism candidate yet?" Just as the 4 approached, an elder nearby spoke. The elder wore a light cyan royal robes, and his hair was balding at the sides of his head. What was left was all white. "He's one of the 8 elders of our blood race, Mo Jianfeng," Shi Yan whispered. "He belongs to the demon blood lineage. Thank you for your concern, elder. We've already chosen our baptism candidate," Shi Yan replied with a smile, pointing to Su Zimo. The 3rd elder looked Su Zimo over, frowned slightly, and asked, "Who is he? I've never seen him before." "Ever since our divine blood lineage fell, you elders probably haven't been paying much attention," Shi Yan replied with a grin. The 3rd elder's face looked slightly awkward. After all, the elders bore some blame for the lineage's decline. The fall of the divine blood lineage was not a topic to be discussed within the blood race. "If that's the case, then let him join the group. The rest of you follow the main group inside," the elder said, waving his hand. Shi Yan nodded and led the 3 others to queue up for entry. Su Zimo, meanwhile, stood to the side with the 3rd elder. Many other young men around his age were also standing nearby. These were presumably members of the other 2 lineages, waiting for the full group to arrive before entering together. As Su Zimo approached, a nearby youth gave him a disdainful look. "This baptism only happens once every 100 years, and they gave the slot to someone like you? What a waste. Hey kid, want to sell your spot to us?" Hearing the youth's words, Su Zimo smiled and asked, "Sure. What will you give me in exchange?" You'll gain our friendship. How about that? The youth laughed loudly. What's the point of friendship with a pile of dogs hit? Not afraid of getting my hands dirty, Su Zimo replied. Don't be ungrateful, kid. You should know your divine blood lineage's current position, the youth warned coldly. I'll remember you, Su Zimo said as he patted the young man's shoulder with a grin. The youth furrowed his brow, about to erupt, but when he noticed the third elder nearby, he held back in the end. A few more clan members joined the group, and Su Zimo glanced around. There were about 30 people in total. Once everyone had gathered, the third elder led the group toward the forbidden area. Stick close to me once we're inside. It's not safe in there, the elder warned. Chapter 533 Seizing the Myriad Tao Red Lotus. The forbidden land of the blood race wasn't a fully sealed space. To be precise, it was a semi-complete dimensional realm. Perhaps to fully unleash the power of the Myriad Tao Red Lotus, it was intentionally left unsealed during its construction. Led by the third elder, the group marched grandly toward the forbidden land. The gate to the forbidden area was massive, a jet-black door etched with countless skulls on either side. It had already been opened, and the scene within glowed a blood-red hue. As the third elder led them through the gate, Su Zimo's view gradually became clear. Above the space was the Nether Blood Sea, a vast ocean of blood. The sky appeared like a crimson dome, separating the sea from the inner space. Directly ahead stood a wide altar, large enough to accommodate over 100 people with ease. The altar resembled a towering structure, shrinking layer by layer until it reached the top. The Nether Blood Sea cascaded down like a waterfall, pouring directly into the altar shaped like a tower. Currently, the altar had 6 levels, and after being infused with the power of the Nether Blood Sea, its surroundings glowed an intense red. Aside from the third elder, the other 7 elders of the blood race were all seated cross-legged around the altar. Spirit force surged around them, and they seemed to be channeling immense power. The young blood race disciples who had entered earlier were now seated in meditation around the altar, awaiting the baptismal energy. Step forward and find your positions around the altar, the third elder said solemnly. As Su Zimo moved up, he realized that those with a baptism slot were seated closest to the altar. The ground was a deep crimson, etched with intricate patterns. The moment he sat down, Su Zimo felt his blood begin to boil and surge, as if being pulled by an unseen force. A roaring sound echoed within his body. His spirit force condensed into a flowing river, rushing between several meridian gates. Such powerful energy, Su Zimo muttered to himself. No wonder the blood race considered the Myriad Tao Red Lotus a sacred treasure. Paired with the Nether Blood Sea, it was an unstoppable force. Once everyone was seated, the third elder stepped forward and addressed the gathered youths loudly. The baptism is a once-in-a-century event for the blood race. Though you weren't chosen, you may still benefit from its power. How much you gain depends on your own efforts and fate. As he finished, the third elder swept his red sleeve, stirring the skies above. I declare the blood race's baptism ceremony officially begins. As his voice fell, all 8 elders took their positions. A majestic aura erupted from their bodies and linked together, drawing endless spiritual energy toward the altar. In an instant, a beam of red light shot up from the altar, piercing through the barrier and entering the blood sea above. The entire tower-shaped altar turned a deep crimson. The calm waterfall of blood above began to churn violently. The blood sea surged into a massive blood dragon, accompanied by thunderous booms. The dragon tore through the barrier and plunged into the altar below. Roars erupted from the dragon as the altar began to tremble, struggling to contain the force. Summon the Red Lotus, the Grand Elder roared. The 8 elders simultaneously formed hand seals, their fingers moving faster and faster. A profound and mysterious energy gathered in their palms. Just as the altar was about to collapse, a loud shout rang out as the 8 seals were completed. They appeared in the air, magnified dozens of times, projecting onto the altar. Then another thunderous boom shook the air. A rift opened in the space ahead, and a blood-red lotus slowly floated out. The lotus resembled others Suzumo had seen before, except for its distinct hue. It had 8 petals, eerie and crimson. "Suppress it," the Grand Elder bellowed. The 8 elders worked together to direct the lotus toward the blood dragon. The myriad Tao red lotus exuded supreme might. As soon as it touched the blood dragon, the beast howled in distress. It tried to flee, to break through the seal and return to the nether blood sea. But the lotus suppressed it steadily, channeling its energy through the altar. As the dragon's power was absorbed, countless miniature lotus flowers emerged from the altar. These lotuses, like smaller versions of the myriad Tao red lotus, flooded out as the dragon writhed and struggled. The moment Suzumo came into contact with a lotus, he felt a surge of powerful energy coursing through his body. This energy even seemed to attempt to alter his internal structure. "So this is the so-called baptism," Suzumo muttered. "The more lotuses one absorbed, the greater the power received." Because the lotuses emanated from the altar, those seated closest, like Suzumo, absorbed the most. Everyone scrambled to absorb the lotuses. The first wave of candidates took in the majority, with only a few drifting outward to the rest. Seeing this, Suzumo chuckled softly. He gave a quick signal to the Divine Emperor and the others, then suddenly leapt into the air. He soared straight toward the myriad Tao red lotus above. His sudden movement immediately caught the attention of the 8 elders, who had already been monitoring the sacred lotus. "Someone's trying to steal the red lotus," the second elder shouted. "Stop him!" The 8 elders launched into the air simultaneously, charging at Suzumo. The disciples below, who had been absorbing the lotus energy, stopped and looked up. Among the 8 elders, the Grand Elder and Second Elder had already reached the immortal path, so their speed was naturally far greater. In the blink of an eye, they reached Suzumo and struck out with immense force. "How did an outsider get into the forbidden area?" the 5th elder growled behind them. "And he was one of the core disciples closest to the altar. What kind of selection process was this?" "It was that boy recommended by the divine blood lineage," the 3rd elder said with an ugly expression. "The divine blood lineage? What are they trying to do?" the 5th elder exclaimed in alarm. As the Grand and Second elders attacked together, Suzumo snorted coldly. Without slowing down, he took the blow head-on. The combined strike of 2 immortal-level elders was no small matter, but within Suzumo, the Tree of Life continued to operate steadily. Chapter 534, Divine Bloodlord Arrives. As the 2 palms struck Suzumo's back, a loud boom echoed, and his body was sent flying through the air. But before the elders could even breathe a sigh of relief, the space nearby was suddenly torn apart by a pair of sharp claws. A massive beast emerged and flew into the sky with Suzumo on its back. Beasts possessed far greater strength and speed than humans. In the blink of an eye, the creature soared into the air. The 8 elders of the blood race panicked. Some even considered burning their own blood essence to stop the beast. Seeing the red lotus just ahead, the chaotic beast used its momentum to hurl Suzumo toward it. Then it turned to face and block the 8 elders. "Damn it! Stop him!" someone shouted below. "He's trying to seize the myriad Tao red lotus and unleash the nether blood sea," the Grand Elder cried out in alarm. Because the Forbidden Realm wasn't completely sealed, if the blood sea was released and broke through the seals, and without the red lotus to suppress it, the consequences would be catastrophic. The massive beast hovered in midair, not attacking, but doing everything it could to hold the elders back. Suzumo reached for the crimson lotus now within arm's reach. The blood dragon, still being suppressed by the red lotus, began to thrash violently. The lotus itself started to tremble. With a metallic clang, Suzumo drew his curved blade, Shadow Tyrant. He unleashed the pure force of his blade intent, severing the suppression of the red lotus and tearing through the void. Without the red lotus to contain it, the blood dragon was completely freed. It absorbed the endless energy of the nether blood sea and roared furiously at the members of the blood race. It appeared to have gained intelligence and was filled with rage and hatred. Now unbound by the dragon, The Myriad Tao Red Lotus no longer resisted and was swiftly stored into Su Zimo's spatial ring. At this point, the blood race had no capacity to deal with Su Zimo. The chaotic blood sea had thrown everything into disarray. The blood dragon's body grew larger and larger, constantly breaking through the incomplete seal of the forbidden zone. As the seal weakened, the dragon absorbed more power. Soon, a second and then a third blood dragon began to appear. "Get all the young ones out of here," the Grand Elder shouted. This kind of chaos wasn't something the younger generation could handle, and they were the future of the clan. As the backbone of the blood race's future, their safety was paramount. Su Zimo immediately handed the Myriad Tao Red Lotus to the God Emperor and said, "Recover quickly. Don't worry. My heaven's will is still intact, only shattered, not destroyed," the God Emperor said excitedly as he accepted the lotus. Restoring heaven's will isn't the same as re-establishing it. The process is much faster. Then do it fast. "We may not have much time," Su Zimo said seriously. "What do you mean?" The God Emperor frowned, then quickly understood. "This energy." He turned toward the east, sensing something awakening in that direction. "I know what it is," the God Emperor said solemnly. He looked down at the Myriad Tao Red Lotus in his hands, his whole body trembling slightly. Becoming a Grand Emperor, what an immense honor that once was. To stand at the pinnacle of existence, when all of creation could only look up in awe. He, the God Emperor, had once reached that peak, thinking it would be the beginning of endless glory. But his heaven's will had been shattered. He had lived through countless eras in hiding, like a rat in the shadows. He dared not walk in the light. He knew that if others discovered he was still alive, the entire divine gate would be overthrown. The divine gate still stood only because people believed that toppling it wasn't worth the cost. Now, after wasting away through several ages, he was finally ready to climb back to the top and reclaim his glory. Watching the God Emperor's silhouette fade into the darkness with resolve, Su Zimo finally turned his gaze back. The blood race was in complete chaos. The seal over the Forbidden Land was nearly destroyed. As more and more blood dragons emerged, it became obvious the blood race's forces were no longer enough. All 8 elders and the clan's other strong fighters had joined the battle, but the death toll was high. Corpses lay everywhere. Screams of agony echoed all around. "The divine blood lineage has betrayed us," someone shouted. "Are they crazy? What do they gain from this? The Myriad Tao Red Lotus won't save their lineage. Who knows? But I think their lineage no longer deserves to exist." Shouts rang out in every direction. The number of blood dragons kept growing, and the sky itself was torn open. The nether blood sea howled above, and the blood race clearly lacked the manpower to stop it. At this rate, their race, which had lasted dozens of eras, was on the brink of annihilation. Just then, a thunderous boom echoed from the east side of the blood race. A tremendous aura erupted into the sky, breaking through the churning blood sea and shooting into the heavens. Then, a man stepped through the air, each stride shaking the sky and earth, moving slowly toward them. He wore a long, blood-red robe, so large it completely cloaked his figure. The robe was backed with red skin, but what truly drew everyone's attention was the man's skin itself. His skin was blood-red, and so were his eyes, crimson and fierce. Dark red spirit force coiled around him. As he walked forward, even the turbulent blood sea above seemed to freeze in place. The man's gaze was deep and indifferent as he looked down at the chaotic blood race. "An ancestor," someone stammered, staring at him in disbelief. There was only one ancestor truly revered in the blood race's history, the Divine Blood Lord. The one who once fought Grand Emperor Hung Yu for the heaven's will of the world. In his time, he was the most promising figure of all. In fact, the details of the Divine Blood Lord's death had never been made public. Aside from the 8 elders, the rest of the blood race didn't know what became of him. Many rumors had swirled. Now, with the Divine Blood Lord's return, how could the race not rejoice? "Ancestor!" The Grand Elder quickly stepped forward and dropped to his knees in greeting. "So, It has finally erupted, the Divine Blood Lord said with a faint sigh. Ancestor, it was the Divine Blood lineage that betrayed us. They stole the Myriad Tao Red Lotus and made it impossible to suppress the Blood Sea. The third elder quickly explained. Enough, old third! The Grand Elder barked at him. This situation had clearly been caused by the Elder's injustice toward the Divine Blood lineage. Their rebellion was no accident. Realizing this, the third elder lowered his head and quietly stepped back. Chapter 535, Suppression. Ancestor, please suppress this chaos, the Grand Elder pleaded. The rebellion of the Nether Blood Sea had already broken through its seal and was now pouring beyond the Forbidden Land into the heart of the Blood Race. Countless clansmen had perished, and the situation had spiraled beyond their ability to contain. The Grand Elder had no choice but to beg the Divine Blood Lord for help. The Divine Blood Lord turned his head, silent for a moment before finally saying, "Start evacuating the clansmen. This chaos cannot be suppressed quickly." The Grand Elder nodded and immediately led the other elders to evacuate the people and try to slow the spread of the Blood Sea. Meanwhile, the Divine Blood Lord walked alone into the sky toward the shattered seal, facing the raging Blood Sea head-on. Countless blood dragons roared, ready to destroy everything in their path. As several of them lunged toward him, the Divine Blood Lord waved his right hand. A thunderous boom erupted, and a wave of blood energy swept out, eradicating all the charging dragons. Then a vast power surged from his body. Behind him, his true fate appeared, a blood-colored lotus modeled after the Myriad Tao Red Lotus. From the lotus, an endless stream of blood energy poured forth, growing denser by the second until it shrouded the entire sky above the Blood Race. The dark red spirit force around the Divine Blood Lord surged as the lotus behind him floated upward, supported by infinite spirit force. It slowly moved toward the broken seal. The Nether Blood Sea seemed to sense this power, and its churning became even more violent. Hundreds of blood dragons tore through the heavens, darting through storm clouds and lightning, stirring up massive waves of blood and echoing dragon roars across the sky. Hundreds of dragons charged at the Divine Blood Lord with overwhelming force, as if to tear him apart. Boom! The Divine Blood Lord's true fate, the Blood Lotus, suddenly trembled. One petal detached and gently wrapped around him. The rest of the lotus began to repair the broken seal. The lotus seemed to suppress the Blood Sea greatly. When the blood dragons slammed into it, not only did they fail to destroy it, some of their power was absorbed by the petal. The Blood Sea above grew more agitated. The lotus continued repairing the seal while the blood dragons kept smashing into it. A tug-of-war began, but clearly, the lotus held the advantage. Though the Nether Blood Sea writhed and raged, the seal was steadily being restored. This was a long, grinding battle. In the end, only the side that endured would win. The Divine Blood Lord stood alone, facing the Blood Sea. The dragons not only attacked the seal but also targeted him. His long, crimson robe fluttered in the wind, the gentle petals of the lotus cloaking his body. Rivers of blood energy flowed across its surface, their light subdued yet immense. A divine, immortal-level aura radiated from him. Calm and composed, his eyes remained fixed on the sky. The aura from the Blood Lotus grew stronger. Invisible space around him shattered and then repaired itself again and again. From the other side of the seal, the Nether Blood Sea surged forward, roaring in fury. "Guard the Ancestor!" the Grand Elder shouted to the other elders. They all nodded. For elders focused on managing the current Blood Race affairs, while the other four soared into the sky, positioning themselves at four corners to guard the Divine Blood Lord from interference during the sealing process. As the seal regained strength, the Nether Blood Sea had to focus all its energy to resist it. It no longer had the strength to wreak havoc inside the Blood Race. Seeing the situation stabilize, the third elder swept his gaze around and ordered, "Arrest all members of the Divine Blood lineage." Divine Blood lineage, Blood Race members, filled with rage, marched toward the nameless peak. From the very beginning of the chaos, Su Zimo and Shi Yan had already returned to the peak. Now, this mountain had been renamed Divine Blood Peak. A gentle breeze blew across the mountaintop. The sky seemed dyed in a layer of blood. Dim red light shone down from above. Shi Yan sat at the peak, having hidden the few remaining members of the lineage. Now, only 3 remained on Divine Blood Peak: Shi Yan, Su Zimo, and Yi Feiyang. The God Emperor had gone into seclusion to recover his strength, and the others had left him undisturbed. "They're almost here?" Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "The ancestor has emerged," Shi Yan replied after a pause. "You scared?" Su Zimo asked. "Does it matter if I am?" Shi Yan chuckled lightly. "After all that's happened, especially with so many deaths, there's no way I'll escape blame." "Do you regret it?" Yi Feiyang asked quietly. "Ask the ones who once conspired to wipe out our lineage. Do they regret it?" Shi Yan shot back. "The reckoning is coming," Su Zimo said, eyes narrowing as he looked down the mountain. Now that the worst of the disaster had passed, the divine blood lineage was being scapegoated by everyone. An angry mob stormed up from the base of the mountain, dark and dense. Shouts echoed across the sky. "Shi Yan, come out! Your divine blood lineage is wicked. Prepare to be wiped out. The elders ordered your arrest. Come out and confess." The yelling grew louder as more and more people ascended the peak. Eventually, they spotted the 3 calmly seated at the summit. The leader of the mob was Mo Yuxiao, a top youth from the demon blood lineage. As the crowd reached the top and saw the calm trio, someone shouted, "Shi Yan, your doom is here. Confess now." The crowd jeered, but Shi Yan ignored them. Instead, he looked directly at Mo Yuxiao. "You're here to take me? The elders want to see you. Come with me," Mo Yuxiao said calmly. Shi Yan smiled, then looked over at Yi Feiyang. "Feiyang, sorry to trouble you." "No trouble. After being gone for years, it's time I settled the score for our divine blood lineage," Yi Feiyang said quietly. "If the elders want to see me, let them come in person," he said flatly, staring down the crowd. "Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you demand the elders come to you?" someone shouted. Yi Feiyang frowned slightly and struck. Before anyone could react, a nearby mountaintop was obliterated with a single palm. Boom! It was leveled to dust. Clouds of debris drifted silently in the empty sky. Chapter 536, Emergence. Yi Feiyang calmly gazed at the group before him. The God Meridian Realm aura radiating from his body pressed down with such intensity that the crowd was silenced. Not a single soul dared to speak. "Senior, are you also one of the blood race?" Mo Yuxiao asked after a moment of silence. "Yi Feiyang of the blood race," Yi Feiyang replied indifferently. Mo Yuxiao paused to think. The name was ancient, from a time so distant he likely hadn't even been born. "Since Senior is one of us, why would you side with the traitors?" Mo Yuxiao asked. "The divine blood lineage nearly destroyed our entire clan. They broke the seal and released the Nether Blood Sea." "I know the truth of the matter," Yi Feiyang said calmly. "You should call for the elders. I've nothing to discuss with you juniors. The fall of the divine blood lineage has everything to do with your 2 lineages." Mo Yuxiao fell silent at Yi Feiyang's words, then finally said, "Very well. Just don't regret your choice." He knew full well that neither he nor his peers could contend with someone like Yi Feiyang. A cultivator in the divine Meridian realm was an untouchable figure to the younger generation. They still had a long way to go. As Mo Yuxiao left, Shi Yan narrowed his eyes and asked, "Can you handle the elders?" "The elders aren't the issue. But if the divine blood lord shows up, that could be trouble," Yi Feiyang said. "No worries. Let's just wait," Su Zimo said with a calm smile. The 3 remained at the summit for a while. Finally, 4 of the elders arrived, flying through the air, accompanied by clan members. The other 4 elders were still guarding the divine blood lord. "Yi Feiyang," the second elder called out cautiously. "It's been a while, elders," Yi Feiyang said with a light smile as he stood up. So it is you. Are you involved in this uprising? The second elder frowned. Back in the day, Yi Feiyong was somewhat known in the clan, largely in a negative light, due to his impure bloodline. After he went missing, most had already forgotten about him. I knew it, people like him, with impure bloodlines, were always bound to rebel. We should have killed him back then, the sixth elder sneered. Yi Feiyong, must you persist in this delusion? The second elder advised. The divine blood lord himself has emerged. He's not someone you can face. How will I know unless I try? Su Zimo said as he stood beside Yi Feiyong with a faint smile. It's you? The second elder narrowed his eyes. Who are you exactly? My identity is none of your business. Your blood race doesn't have the power to retaliate against me, Su Zimo said, shaking his head. I don't care who you are. There must be an explanation for all of this, the second elder said. Hand over the myriad Tao Red Lotus, and I may show some leniency. Otherwise, you'll be executed. You and what army? Su Zimo chuckled as he waved his right hand. From the void, Chaos, the massive beast, emerged, tearing through space with an aura of the arcane immortal realm swirling around it. That beast again? The second elder's face darkened. This time the divine bloodlord has returned. You won't be arrogant for long. Everyone knew that at the same cultivation level, a beast's strength usually surpassed a human's. In a duel, unless one was a top genius, winning was nearly impossible. Su Zimo smiled and patted Chaos on the back. Someone seems to be displeased with you. Go play with him. Chaos roared and charged at the second elder. The surrounding elders hesitated, clearly nervous about intervening. After all, they were only in the Divine Meridian realm and had no place in a battle of this level. No need to worry. The second elder noticed their hesitation. I can handle this. Just make sure none of the people on this mountain escape. Once the Divine Bloodlord completes the sealing, we'll deal with the rest. The others agreed and didn't attack Su Zimo or the others, but instead surrounded Divine Blood Peak, forming a barrier and array to prevent any of the lineage's members from fleeing. Meanwhile, though Chaos was stronger than the second elder, the elder continued to dodge and avoid a direct fight, making it difficult to determine a winner anytime soon. As night fell, tension across the blood race only grew stronger. In the forbidden area, the divine bloodlord continued restoring the seal. The Nether Blood Sea had already been completely suppressed. Its resistance grew weaker and weaker, and it seemed the seal would soon be fully repaired. At that moment, on a desolate and forgotten mountain peak in the blood race's territory, the God Emperor sat cross-legged, his aura becoming increasingly solid. It was as if he were emerging from illusion into reality. Behind him, an entire world seemed to be revolving. An overwhelming power brewed within him, a power as terrifying and suffocating as a volcano ready to erupt, like the calm before a thunderstorm. By morning, the sky began to lighten. Dew clung to blades of grass, glistening and pristine. The corpses from yesterday's battle had all been cleared. The divine blood lord stood in midair, waving his right hand, a faint weariness in his expression. Restoring the seal had been draining. A final rumble echoed from the heavens. The blood sea gave one last struggle. The blood dragons let out thunderous roars, or perhaps mournful wails. The sky was clear, and as the faint red seal completed its final phase of restoration, it was as though the world itself had been cleansed. The seal was fully restored. The divine blood lord let out a long sigh of relief. This sacred ground was the product of nearly 1,000 years of effort by the blood race. Had it been destroyed, all those years of planning would have been reduced to nothing. Ancestor, are you all right? The Grand Elder rushed over and asked with concern. I'm fine, but the space here has now been completely sealed. We won't be able to use it again. The Divine Blood Lord shook his head. The myriad Tao Red Lotus is critical to us. Ancestor, we've already located the ones who stole the Red Lotus. But... The Grand Elder hesitated. But what? The Divine Blood Lord frowned. We've surrounded them, but we can't subdue them, the Grand Elder admitted. Take me to them. the Divine Blood Lord said. At Divine Blood Peak, when the Divine Blood Lord arrived with all 8 elders in tow, he looked across the summit, scanning the 3 figures present, and said, "Who are you?" Just as Su Zimo was about to answer, a sudden burst of energy erupted from the eastern direction. The overwhelming aura tore through the sky and soared straight up into the heavens, shaking the firmament. Chapter 537, Heaven's Will Recovers. A towering aura surged straight into the sky, blanketing the entire world. In that instant, all laws retreated. The stars of the heavens began to shift and evolve across the firmament. From the distant edge of the heavens, a man in a black robe walked slowly forward. It was as if he bore the weight of the heavens on his shoulders and tread upon the wheels of reincarnation. Spirit force surged joyfully around him, and the laws themselves clashed and resonated at his sides. In that moment, it was as though the sun and moon lost their brilliance, heaven and earth changed color. In everyone's eyes, there was only this man. He seemed to have emerged from the ancient desolation, transcending time and space, bringing with him an overwhelming, unparalleled sense of dominance. His black robe rippled in the windless sky, and in his eyes, all the cycles of the cosmos were unfolding. A mysterious aura clung to his being, invisible and intangible, yet utterly perceptible. It felt as though this aura had fused him with heaven and earth themselves. He was no longer just a creature within this world. He was one with it. This is... The Divine Blood Lord looked at the man walking out of the ancient void, and his expression turned solemn. How is this possible? The heavens' will hasn't even formed yet. He kept shaking his head. Others might not understand what they were witnessing, but he did. He had seen this with his own eyes before, during the battle where he was defeated. He had seen Grand Emperor Hongyu ascend by bearing the heaven's will. Now, that same scene unfolded again before him. And the feeling this man gave him was exactly the same as Grand Emperor Hongyu back then. Though they were so alike, the Divine Blood Lord still didn't want to accept it. The heaven's will wasn't complete yet. How could a new Grand Emperor exist? If this was a returning Grand Emperor from a past era, the cost would have been astronomical, but this man didn't seem to match any known one. The Divine Blood Lord could only sense that this person was like a dense fog, impossible to see through, and the pressure he radiated was overwhelming. The God Emperor only took a few steps to cross the void. Walking on the laws themselves, he arrived atop Divine Blood Mountain. "May I ask your name, Senior?" the Divine Blood Lord cautiously asked. "My title was lost long ago. Even I, the Emperor, have nearly forgotten it," the God Emperor said quietly. "But ever since I bore the heaven's will, the world has called me God Emperor. You may do the same." "God Emperor." The Divine Blood Lord's face changed, his expression growing heavier. The legend of the 3 Grand Emperors descending to slay the God Emperor was well known throughout the primordial heartlands. He was regarded as the first Grand Emperor to fall in known history. But now, the God Emperor stood before him, and countless images raced through the Divine Blood Lord's mind. His throat trembled, but he couldn't form a single word. The appearance of a Grand Emperor would mean the primordial heartlands was about to change utterly. A new heaven's will had yet to form, yet an old Grand Emperor had returned. The Divine Blood Lord felt like the heavens themselves had become unfathomable. "What brings the God Emperor to our blood race?" the Divine Blood Lord asked. At this point, there was no room to back down. If the God Emperor had truly recovered, destroying the blood race would take mere seconds. And even he could not stop that. The Divine Blood Lord knew full well what kind of being a Grand Emperor truly was. "You could say I owe your blood race for helping me recover," the God Emperor replied calmly. "I don't understand," said the Divine Blood Lord, shaking his head. "You don't need to," the God Emperor said. "I came this time to deal with an internal matter in your race." "Please speak plainly," the Divine Blood Lord said, glancing at the 8 elders, his mind racing with guesses. In the God Emperor's past, he had tried to dominate the primordial heartlands that had led to the 3 Grand Emperors descending to kill him. The Divine Blood Lord wasn't sure if he was trying to rise again. In the past, Someone from your blood race did me a great favor. I'm here to return it, the God Emperor said calmly. As soon as he spoke, the blood race burst into uproar. Especially the 8 elders, their expressions eased. If this was about repaying a favor, then it was manageable. The gratitude of a grand emperor, that was priceless beyond measure. But the divine blood lord remained stoic, his brow furrowing. He sensed danger. This didn't feel like a simple visit. May I ask, who in our race are you repaying? The divine blood lord asked. It's me. Shi Yan stood up and spoke. The moment he did, the 8 elders' expressions darkened instantly. The divine blood lord didn't yet know the full story, but judging by the reaction, it was clearly complicated. Ancestor, he's a member of the divine blood lineage, the grand elder said quietly. He's the one who stole the myriad Tao Red Lotus. God Emperor, Shi Yan bowed to him respectfully. Please let me speak my request. You said you'd help me fulfill it. The God Emperor nodded. Name it. Shi Yan looked around at the crowd, at the diverse expressions of the blood race members. His gaze settled on the 8 elders. He smiled slightly and then declared, word by word, I want to be the supreme ruler of the blood race. That's impossible. Several of the elders immediately objected. The blood race disciples on the mountain were all shocked, the area erupting in debate. Shi Yan, you should know our blood race has never had a single ruler. We are led by 8 elders. You were born of our clan. Do you really have no loyalty? No regard for our traditions? You think you're qualified to lead us? What gives you the right to demand this? As the elders flailed between protest and threat, Shi Yan said calmly, you don't need to worry about anything else. But as for the position of patriarch, I will have it. The divine blood lord turned to look at the God Emperor. He knew the decision lay with him. The God Emperor didn't respond immediately. He simply looked at the divine blood lord with interest, waiting for his answer. How about this? The divine blood lord offered. We add a 9th elder position for you. That way everyone is satisfied. What do you say? I don't want anything else, only the position of patriarch, Shi Yan replied flatly. In that case, the God Emperor said, you have 2 choices, submit to him or face annihilation. I'd rather die than recognize that man as my master, the 3rd elder shouted. The words had barely left his mouth when the God Emperor pointed his finger. Before he could resist, his true fate and God soul were obliterated instantly. I don't care either way. Destroying a race might cost me a few nails on my fingers, the God Emperor said lightly. You know, back then I used to crush entire imperial lineages. This would be nothing. Only then did the blood race members finally realize this man standing before them wasn't here to negotiate. He was the same madman who once sought to dominate the entire world. And now, every eye in the blood race turned to the divine blood lord. Chapter 538 Many Arrivals. After all, the divine blood lord was their forefather, their last hope. But as long as the Green Hills remain, there is always a path forward, the divine blood lord said calmly, looking at the blood race. Some were angry, some resentful, and others silent. He spoke evenly. Your fates are yours to choose. If you wish to submit to Shi Yan, so be it. If you'd rather die than accept him, that's your choice as well. I will respect it. But remember this. As long as the Green Hills remain, there is always another chance. After he finished speaking, several of the elders sighed softly. The pressure of the situation left them no room to choose. It was either death or submission. They couldn't allow the entire clan to be destroyed on their watch. We greet the patriarch. The elders bent forward and saluted Shi Yan. Seeing the elders kneel, the rest of the clan members began dropping to their knees, one after another. We greet the patriarch. The thunderous chorus of voices echoed across Divine Blood Mountain, like waves crashing against the sky. Patriarch of the blood race. Shi Yan let out a soft chuckle, as if amused by the title. My lord. The God Emperor turned to Su Zimo and addressed him respectfully. Being a Grand Emperor is quite intoxicating, isn't it? Su Zimo smiled. You don't know what it's worth until you've lost it. The God Emperor nodded. In that case, come with me. Su Zimo stretched lazily and stood. It's time for us to move on. As Su Zimo and the God Emperor departed, the Divine Blood Lord frowned slightly. He had sensed that the God Emperor seemed deferential to this youth, though logically, that made no sense. Still, with the God Emperor's departure, a great weight lifted from his shoulders. A Grand Emperor's presence alone, even doing nothing, could suppress entire realms. The Divine Blood Lord turned to Shi Yan and said, Now that you are the Patriarch, take care of your people. You are one of them. Shi Yan nodded slightly. The Divine Blood Lord said no more. With a wave of his right hand, he tore open a portal and disappeared into his place of seclusion, a place he would not leave unless the clan faced true annihilation. Winter passed. Spring winds swept across the sky, breathing new life into the land. Skiluan region, the Lan clan. At that moment, Blue Sky City was in ruins. Its people were fleeing in all directions. Explosions thundered through the skies, threatening to flatten the land itself. Cries of panic and terror tore through the crowd, as the Lan clan, prosperous for generations, fell into chaos. Paimon stood before the Chaos Stone, his massive body trembling. This was the prophesied day of Demontide. He was about to break the seal of the primordial demon cave, heralding the rebirth of the ancient demon race, just like in the old days. Step by step, he approached the Chaos Stone. Around him, the 7 ancestral elders of the Lan clan tried desperately to stop him, but their efforts were in vain. As Paimon reached the Chaos Stone, he extended his hand toward it. The moment his palm touched the blue barrier around the stone, a resonant buzz sounded, and a mighty force blasted him away. Then, boom, 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 boom. 8 massive explosions rang out. The Chaos Stone vanished without a trace, as if swallowed by space itself. The 8 surrounding pillars lit up with dazzling white light. A barrier formed, trapping Paimon inside. As the light touched him, it burned like fire. Paimon screamed in agony from the searing pain. Why wait any longer? Show yourselves. Lan Zilin called out. At his command, multiple auras erupted from the surroundings of Blue Sky City. These powers shot into the sky, splitting the heavens, illuminating all realms. Beyond Heaven's Sword Mountain has arrived, to slay demons and protect the realm. Invincible Domain has arrived, to defend Skiluan region. Several booming voices echoed as a flood of immortal energy surged from the east, filling the entire sky. 3 figures emerged, shattering the heavens, stepping out from the void. Majestic immortal energy radiated from their bodies. 1 lineage, 2 grand emperors beyond Heaven's Sword Mountain, and the famous invincible domain of Skiluan region. We're saved, cheered the people of Blue Sky City. Beyond Heaven's Sword Mountain once gave rise to the Heavenslaughter Emperor, who led the lineage into glory. It thrived through many eras, including the time of Grand Emperor Tianming, becoming one of the most revered forces in the domain. As for the Invincible Domain, though it only had 1 Grand Emperor, the legend of the Invincible Emperor was widely known. It was said that the sex cultivation method was unique, extremely difficult, but once mastered, rendered the user peerless within their realm. The Invincible Emperor had never been defeated. He had carried the heavens' will while remaining unbeaten all the way to his rise. People across the continent revered the Invincible Domain's techniques and sought them desperately. His disciples were, as a result, far stronger than average. Now, with these 2 imperial lineages' sacred lords personally arriving, together with the Lan clan's 7 ancestral elders, this was an event the region hadn't witnessed in ages. Look, that's Absolute Sword Ancestor, War General of Heavenslaughter Emperor, someone shouted, pointing to the old man on the left. The elder held a long sword. Though he looked frail, his posture was straight, like a drawn blade. Dressed in a simple green robe, the sharp glint of his sword aura made it hard to look directly at him. It stung the eyes. And beside him, isn't that Dugu Wanchong, the sword demon and war general under Grand Emperor Tianming? All eyes turned. The man wore white robes, and his sword aura had both form and substance. Dark sword energy swirled around him, and the moment it surged, all the sword wielders in Blue Sky City felt their blades hum uncontrollably, as if paying homage to something divine. That last one must be the sacred lord of the invincible domain, Invincible Jiang, right? Someone nearby whispered. Rumor has it she once fought 100 moves against the Invincible Emperor and didn't lose. Just rumors. The Invincible Emperor was only testing her, not fighting seriously. Still, she's impressive. As people talked, Invincible Jiang stood high above in the sky. Anyone seeing her for the first time would be stunned. For she was a beautiful woman, an elegant, graceful fairy who seemed to have descended from the heavens. She wore a flowing robe of blue and white cloud-patterned silk that fluttered gently in the breeze. Her long, snowy white legs peeked out now and then beneath the robe, graceful and alluring. Her long hair draped over her back, tied with a sky-blue ribbon. Chapter 539 Paimon Captured. Invincible Jiang, the matriarch of the Invincible Domain. There were many rumors about her. Some said she was the Invincible Emperor's confidant. Others claimed she was his wife. She had fought alongside him throughout his legendary campaigns, and after his ascension, she withdrew into seclusion with the Jiang clan. Her life was a legend. To dare name herself invincible spoke volumes of her pride and confidence. At this moment in Blue Sky City, the sight of so many powerful immortal-level cultivators arriving left many citizens frozen in place, forgetting even to flee. "We're saved!" someone cried out. Whether it was Absolute Sword Ancestor, Sword Demon Dugu Wenchang, or the formidable Invincible Jiang, these were reclusive ancestral figures, each capable of shaking the Skiluan region with a flick of their finger. Even the disciples of the Lan clan didn't understand why these imperial lineages were helping them. Many didn't even know that the Lan clan was part of the demon-slaying lineage. "Brother Absolute Sword, it's been a long time," Lan Jilin shouted with a booming laugh that echoed through the sky. "Brother Wenchang, glad you made it. Lady Jiang, how have you been in recent years?" The 7 ancestral elders of the Lan clan each greeted the newcomers, clearly on familiar terms with them. After exchanging a few words, everyone turned their attention to Paimon, trapped within the formation. At that moment, demonic energy surged wildly around Paimon, threatening to consume the entire world. But the 8 surrounding pillars radiated pure white light. Inlaid within each pillar were shimmering crystals, shining with pure brilliance like gems that could purify the world. "He's the so-called demon?" Dugu Wenchang asked. "Yes, and extremely strong, far beyond any demon we've encountered before," Lan Jilin answered gravely. "Fortunately, we prepared a trap around the Chaos Stone, using light origin stones to construct this formation. Their power restrains demonic energy extremely well. That's the only reason we managed to trap him. Otherwise, even with all of us here, we might not stand a chance." Light origin stones were among the rarest crystals in the world. Legends claimed they were formed from the essence of the River of Light. Each one was precious beyond measure and especially effective in suppressing demonic energy. In truth, Paimon's strength in this realm was nearly invincible. If not for the countering power of the formation, no one here could stop him. And while he currently couldn't break free, unless he broke through the 10th Meridian Gate, escape was impossible. However, the rules of this world were strict. Forcing a breakthrough would immediately alert the heavenly Tao and bring its wrath. The risk outweighed the reward, and this dilemma gnawed at him. "There's a clause in your Lan clan's ancestral will," Invincible Jiang said with interest. "It speaks of a time long ago, of ancient legends that foretold the ancient demons would one day descend upon this world. When that day comes, they will bring destruction. And in that era of great upheaval, your Lan clan will rise as the vanguard, lifting the curtain on this grand era of change." Lan Jilin shook his head and replied, "You misunderstand, Lady Jiang. Our Lan clan are merely guardians. We protect the Chaos Stone from being taken. We slay demons, uphold the Tao, and defend the continents from demonic invasion. People say demons should die, but I've never seen them actually do anything." Invincible Jiang commented. Their plan is to open the primordial demon cave and summon the ancient demon race, Lan Zhilin explained. They're still too weak to shake the world. That's why they haven't acted. Then let us meet this so-called demon, Dugu Wenchang said with a smile. 10 people stepped forward, surrounded by thick, swirling immortal energy. They descended to the edge of the formation, gazing at Paimon with focused intensity. Demon, can we talk? Lan Jingxiong asked aloud. I am Paimon, demon of despair, one of the 18 infernal archons under the infernal lord, came the cold reply from within the formation. Demon of despair, how about we make a deal? Lan Jingxiong said after exchanging glances with the others. We walk different paths. There is no common ground between us, Paimon replied coldly. We're willing to keep you imprisoned instead of killing you. In exchange, you'll tell us everything about the ancient demon race, Lan Jingxiong proposed. You really think you can kill me? Paimon sneered. Even if things came to the worst, he'd rather perish with them all. If pushed, he would risk the wrath of the heavenly Tao and forcefully open the 10th meridian gate, killing them all before dying. If you insist on your madness, we won't hold back, Lan Jingxiong said coldly. To slay demons is the creed of our demon-slaying clan. Monsters like you, scourges of the living, deserve to rot in hell. Prepare the demon annihilation life and death formation, Lan Zhilin said flatly. They had hoped to extract more information from Paimon, but he was uncooperative and defiant. There was no point in keeping him alive. Everyone, Lan Zhilin turned to the imperial lineages. Have you all mastered the formation seal I taught you? It's complex, not fully mastered, but we can execute it, Absolute Sword Ancestor responded. Then let's begin. At his word, the 10 experts took their positions, flying through the air to surround Paimon in a perfect circle. 4 of them sat cross-legged in place. Massive immortal energy surged from their bodies as each began forming hand seals. Their gestures grew faster and more intricate by the second, the seals dazzling with pure white light charged with a world-destroying force. Boom! 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 As the seals took shape, the entire sky trembled beneath their power. Storms of spirit force tore through the air, sundering the heavens. The pressure from the 10 seals blanketed the land, dimming the sun and moon. Winds howled, stones flew, lightning crackled. Thick clouds rolled in from all directions. Silver lightning bolts descended like serpentine dragons, striking down violently. 10 beams of light shot into the sky, and the speed of the rotating seals grew even faster, now moving too quickly for the naked eye to follow. Form! Lan Zhilin shouted. The seal in his hand exploded with brilliant light, solidifying completely as it shot into the sky. It transformed into a vortex-shaped gateway hanging in the air above. Suddenly, from that gate, a golden chain clinked and unfurled, flying straight toward Paimon. Chapter 540, The Skiluan Region. The golden chain emerged from the void and shot directly at Paimon. He frowned slightly and struck out with his palm. A thunderous boom echoed all around, but to everyone's surprise, the golden chain seemed to be ethereal, almost like a projection. It passed straight through his palm as if it wasn't a real, tangible object. Before Paimon could react further, the golden chain suddenly erupted with radiant light. It pierced through his chest with lightning speed, nailing him in place mid-air. Paimon struggled furiously, but he quickly noticed that this golden chain carried a power capable of devouring his demonic energy. He couldn't break free, not yet. Looking up at those floating above, Paimon's eyes grew cold. This demon-slaying clan had existed for countless generations, and clearly, they had methods. Their understanding of demonic power ran deep. The techniques of the demon-slaying clan were especially effective when dealing with his kind. As the first golden chain pinned Paimon in the air, the remaining 9 experts also completed their seals. 9 seal marks shot up into the heavens, nearly identical to the one Lan Zhilin had used earlier, but far more powerful. Thunder roared as the sky trembled. 9 portals opened in unison, from which golden chains descended like ancient, colossal dragons. Tearing through the void, breaking the firmament, the chains fell like divine judgment. Before Paimon could react, the chains wrapped tightly around him, his neck, wrists, ankles, every limb bound. 10 chains now formed a complete circuit connecting end to end. With a mighty boom, a shockwave burst outward. Symbols appeared on the surface of the chains, complex and ancient. Though unreadable to most, they radiated profound mystery. As the symbols lit up, the golden glow of the chains intensified. Paimon could clearly feel the chains siphoning away his demonic energy. It felt as if they were draining him dry, body and soul. In 7 days, this demon annihilation life and death formation will destroy every trace of a demon, said Lan Jingxiong. Enjoy the feast we've prepared for you. Even if you kill me, there are countless more demons, Paimon said calmly. One day our kind will rule this era. You are mere dust beneath the grinding wheel of time. Be that as it may, Lan Jilin replied coolly. As long as the Chaos Stone remains, your demon race will never break the seal and step onto the primordial heartlands. Will this formation really destroy him? Asked Elder Juejian, watching Paimon's still writhing figure, cloaked in immense demonic aura. Most ordinary demons would be annihilated within 7 days, Lan Jilin explained. But his demonic nature is too strong, it may take longer. Frankly, we've never encountered a being like this before. Then we'll stay and guard it until he's truly destroyed, Sword Demon Dugu Wanchang said coldly. Now fully sealed, Paimon and the entire space around him were isolated. The demonic energy faded, and the massive barrier surrounding Blue Sky City slowly dissipated. Citizens returned to the city, and the Lan clan held a grand feast, celebrating alongside the imperial lineages. Killing a being like Paimon was the greatest victory in their clan's history. Winter gradually faded, and the spring winds warmed the land. Trees sprouted new growth, and the world began to awaken from dormancy. After leaving the Nether Blood Sea, Su Zimo and the God Emperor used a teleportation formation to travel toward the Skilluin region. Skilluin shared a close connection with the eastern continent. After several transfers, the two finally passed through the Qi Imperial clan's territory, using their teleportation formation to arrive at Ragefire City. This brings us to the layout of the Skilluin region. As one of the 5 great regions of the Middle Continent, ranked equally with the Holy Flower region, Skilluin was home to 5 imperial lineages, not including the mysterious Lan clan, which had never produced a true Grand Emperor and was thus not considered one of them. The 5 were Beyond Heavensword Mountain, home to 2 Grand Emperors; Invincible Domain, Vast Immortal Sacred Ground, Grand River God Sect; and the Imperial Throne Sacred Ground, the strongest of them all with 3 Grand Emperors. These 5 lineages shaped the history of the Skilluin region, each leaving behind legends that spanned centuries. After navigating the void, Su Zimo and the God Emperor arrived in Ragefire City, one of the vast immortal sect's strongholds. Stepping out of the teleportation formation, Su Zimo could see the bustling city clearly. Unfamiliar with Skilluin, the two decided to stay the night, gather information, then head for the Lan clan. As night fell, they found a guest inn within the city's bustling tavern district, ordered food and drinks, and began to chat casually. When the food was served, Su Zimo tossed a few spirit crystals to the waiter. "I have a question," Su Zimo said. "Please ask, sir," the waiter said cheerfully, pocketing the crystals. "How far is the Lan clan from here?" "You mean the Lan clan of Blue Sky City, right?" the waiter asked, thinking for a moment. "There's quite a distance. You'd need to travel to Whitebone City first and use the teleportation formation there." "Whitebone City," Su Zimo murmured and nodded slightly. The tavern was quite busy, packed with diners due to the evening hour. Just as Su Zimo was eating, a group of people walked through the door. They were mostly young men and women, led by a scholarly old man with graying beard and dressed in Confucian robes. The youths all wore matching dark cyan robes, each with the character Dao, Dal, embroidered on the back. At a glance, one could tell this group was no ordinary assembly. Each one exuded power, handsome men, elegant women, brimming with confidence. Their arrival caused a moment of silence in the tavern. Heavenly Tao Academy. Those are students from Heavenly Tao Academy, someone gasped. #1 academy on the continent, others whispered. Their eyes filled with awe and respect. Founded in the desolate era, Heavenly Tao Academy was the most renowned educational institution in the known world.